What is up? Welcome back to the Fast Life Podcast, everyone. What is up? Man, got a great show for you guys again today. And that'll be 5 for this month, so you're welcome. Not really, but thanks for sticking with us. Got MJK Performance on here. Dale's a good dude. I talked to him a couple times in our history of knowing each other, and it's been pleasant each time. So this time we got a good 2.5, 3 hour podcast for you guys. But first I'd like to say a special thanks to our sponsors, Texas Performance MC. You can check out Mark anytime on Instagram at Texas Performance MC, as well as online if you just add a .com on the end of that. I'm looking forward to doing some work with Mark. I think we're going to end up doing that zippers cam that you guys probably heard about in the podcast with Rusty from D&D. So I think me and Mark are going to be working together on that project, and even got some ideas about doing like an exhaust shootout. You know, Mark's a dyno tuner. I don't know what the right term is, but you know, he has a dyno down there and he does a lot of tuning and all that type of shit. And you know, with these new M8 motors and all the claims that people are having, like, fuck, we thought about maybe just doing an exhaust shootout, you know, same bike, same setup, same temperatures, same day. Change the exhaust out, you know, make sure the flows are right and see what kind of numbers each one puts out. And I don't know, this is just premature thoughts, but you know, stay tuned for that stuff. But in the meantime, you can always check out Mark in Cedar Park, Texas. Like I said, he has a dyno. He can tune your shit. He can maintenance your shit. He can keep it on the road, get it back on the road, make it ride on the road better. So get with him for all those different types of things. I also want to thank my buddy Brian at painthuffer.com. If you want to get some flakes, get some t-shirts, some hats, some stickers, some banners, even tapes, you know, Brian has it all. Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram. If you want to see some of the amazing painters that use their flakes, we are one of them. I wouldn't say we're amazing, but we're definitely one of the people that use them. So check out painthuffer.com for the actual purchase of those products. And if you want to get some inspiration, you can check out a lot of talented artists on Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram. I also want to thank Horsepower Inc. for continuing to stick with us and help us do some things. Really leaning towards running their throttle body setup and injector setup on this motor. Now first I want to do the zipper cam setup with this exhaust and see what kind of numbers it comes out with this 114. But you know what they say, horsepower is that lethal addiction, I guess is the word for it. So it's like, I know as soon as I get all this extra power, I'm going to be over it in like a month or something, or 2 days, or fucking after the first day. I don't know. So I'm hearing good numbers about, or good reports about the kind of numbers that you can kind of pull with running one of their, you know, big bore throttle bodies and injector setups. So going to be getting with Jimmy here pretty soon and finding out more information about that setup. And hopefully it's something that we'll end up doing and have some real time feedback of our thoughts on it. So stay tuned for those kind of concepts here coming soon. But in the meantime, you can check out Horsepower Inc. on the internet at horsepowerinc.net. You can also check them out on Instagram at Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. on Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. In Indianapolis area, they're a full service shop. I even think they got Dixon flannels up there. I just saw on Instagram today. So if you Indianapolis folks or Indianians, I did not do that right, but just whatever. Go check out their shop, man. See if they got some stuff in the shop that you can kind of jump onto and check, you know, just buy or, you know, get your bike worked on or whatever the case may be. But check them out and tell them you heard about them through the podcast, please. But yeah, so yeah, we're back. We got another podcast for you, yay. And it's a pretty dope, and I'm pretty excited about this, man. It was you know, MJK Dale, he's up there in Canada in Calgary there, so you know, we had to do a phone podcast, but you know, I'm stoked. I'm still glad about the conversation we had, and very, very interested in his brand and his products as a company. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to have him on here. But real quick before I get to the end of this, I think I'm going to be running down to Lone Star this weekend. So all you guys down in Texas are going to be at Lone Star Rally. I think I'm going to be riding down Thursday evening, staying with my buddy Cody. And, you know, I'll probably be there Friday all day running around. So if you see me, just, you know, holler at me, say what's up. You know, I'm going to try to hit up the Pearwitz Paint Show on Saturday And then from there, I'm going to be ripping back up to Dallas about mid-afternoon on Saturday. So, you know, if you're going to be at Lone Star Rally, man, hit me up. I'd love to hang out, meet some of you guys and whatnot. Don't forget to also check out our Patreon. We appreciate all the help we get on that, all the subscribers. And, man, anytime you guys hear about any products or anything on this podcast that has inspired you to reach out to a company, man, if you just tell them you heard about them, it helps us reach. It helps us. You know what I mean? It helps people see the power of the podcast. If that should be a T-shirt slogan, I guess. But you know, just let people know, man. Don't forget about our Patreon. Don't forget to share the podcast that you like on your Instagram, Facebook, and whatever new thing is out there. You know, we appreciate that, and it helps it grow, and it helps us continue to get more guests, such as the one we're talking to today. You can follow MJK on Instagram at MJK_performance. If you're not following him already, the dude's got some amazing, tricked out, you know, just badass machine work and just innovation in my opinion. So I don't want to keep rambling on and talking over myself. So check him out here. Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys. You ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Thank you for calling MJK Performance. We are now closed. All right.
MJK?
Hey, what's up, man? This is Jace.
Hey.
What's up, dude?
Oh, you know, working.
I was like, I know I didn't get the answer machine.
Yeah, I know.
Man, I thought you were headed out to SEMA. You waiting or what?
No, I go tomorrow night.
Nice.
Yeah, tomorrow night I head out there, and then I'm there until Friday.
Nice. Yeah, I'm opted to skip out on it this year, so.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Have you been there? I've never been, so I haven't got a clue what I'm in for. I have an idea from watching, like, reality TV shows, but other than that, I haven't got a clue. I think I'm in for a treat, so I'm pretty excited.
You have to really appreciate cars to go out there and, like, really enjoy it 100%, or you have to appreciate cars a lot more than I do. You know what I mean? Like, I dig cars, but I'm a bike guy, so, you know,
Oh, okay.
when I'm there, I just like, man, like, who else in the motorcycle industry is here? And you kind of like click up, and you're like, it's you guys versus everybody or whatever, you know. But there's a lot of really badass stuff there. You know, it's definitely probably the best show in the world, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feed more off of, like, I don't know. I'm a car guy, and I'm a bike guy. I'm a boat guy. I'm just kind of a gearhead. So
yeah. Well, you know, like you know, today I was kind of scrolling back on your Instagram and checking out some of the shovelhead days and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, like, what kind of got you into the bikes originally? Because, you know, from day one, I can see that you brought another, like, a different flair into whatever bike scene you were kind of working in, you know, from the shovelheads to now the baggers and stuff like that. So what got your foot in the door with all this stuff?
With just the shovelheads?
Well,
Or
just
the bike
bikes,
stuff in
like,
general?
Yeah.
Well, the bike stuff in general was from, like, a lot of guys, I think, is from childhood, right?
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of people don't know this, but my dad never owned a motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
And his my godfather did, and that was my father's best friend. So my dad was a truck driver, and he was gone all the time. I was raised by my dad, not my mom.
Yeah.
So he's gone all the time. So I hung out with my godfather all the time, who was, you know, a biker, and that's where it stemmed from. But my dad was like kind of a gearhead.
Yeah.
So he did drag racing, was into boats and big trucks, like he's like a truck driver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where it all kind of came from. So, I mean, the whole bike thing just came about because first I was into cars before I was into bikes.
So you'll love SEMA then.
What's that?
So you're going to love SEMA then because it's everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to have a blast there because, I mean, I don't know. For me, all that stuff that's there is right up my alley. Like, I like mechanical things, right?
Yeah.
So I want to see how suspension works. I want to see how, you know, on the new stuff. Like, I'm so out of the loop up here, it's not even funny. So, I mean, you go to a local car show here, and dude, it's Canada. There's not a lot happening up here.
But yeah, the crazy aspect though is that you would look at like the things that you're doing on your bikes, and even like I said, the shovel heads, and it was still super innovative for our culture. It's always had like this really nice MotoGP kind of aesthetic vibe to it, But
yeah, my first bikes did. My first bikes were cookie cutters.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were literally like buy a frame, buy parts, and weld some tabs on it and go for it.
yeah, I'm at that stage right now on my shit.
Oh, are you?
No, well, I haven't even started yet, so I'm not even there yet. But I want to build a bike, and that's kind of probably where I'll start to kind of get my feet wet to find out if it's something I want to pursue harder or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, there's a certain satisfaction with it, but at the same time, as long as you don't do it for money,
yeah,
you'll stay happy. But when you start doing it for money, you get really jaded really quick.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I ended up hating it.
Yeah, I mean I run through the same courses with the paint stuff, man. Sometimes it's like you find something and you're real motivated, and then after a year of it, and it maybe didn't pan out as lucrative as you thought it would or whatever. It's just it really can suck the happiness out of it, fairly quickly.
Well, it's an appreciation of a craft that people don't have anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think they did years ago, but it was kind of a from the whole TV thing.
Yeah.
From the whole biker build-off back in the day, which, I mean, in reality wasn't that long ago. Mm-mm. It's amazing how quick things turn. So, I mean, back then, there was a true appreciation for it, but even then, there wasn't any money in it. So,
yeah.
When you get a lot of appreciation, not a lot of money, it kind of offsets a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start getting zero appreciation and zero money, then it takes its toll on you.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of go, no, I'm out. So that's kind of what happened with the whole, I guess, building a bike thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started hanging around with some like really great craftsmen,
mm-hmm.
which made me push harder. And then, I got into the engine side of it because I love engines.
Mm-hmm.
I love like
the gearhead.
Making more. Yeah, I'm a gearhead. So I love making more power. I love making them, aesthetically pleasing. There's so many aspects to it, right? There's, for me, sitting back and looking at a fully built, shelf head, pan head, knuckle, whatever, to what I think is aesthetically pleasing, is almost like jewelry.
Yeah. Well, so, that's what I was, told about your work before I ever started following you on Instagram. A good friend of mine, Adam Garley, he's always been following you, I guess, and I reached out to him because before I ever knew anybody in the chopper scene, he was like my dude that I knew. And I was like, dude, I'm really into these shovel heads, man. He goes, and I told him I wanted to build one, and here we are, almost 3 years later, and I still haven't. But, he was like, man, you got to check out this dude. You can send him your motor, and then like soon after that, you stopped doing the builds on the motors and stuff. So, and then from there on, it's like I saw you kind of getting into the, the kind of Dyna FXR crowd and stuff, but. You had it seemed like you had a huge like reputation for the motor, rebuilding and remachining and whatever it is. I'm not hip to the terms, you know what I mean? But going back to them.
I really wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to do a nice job. I wanted people to be proud of that they got something from me. Yeah. It still stems to what I'm doing now. But you kind of put your all into something, and nowadays, social media, all you got to do is one thing wrong and it goes sideways. So, it just helped me propel, I guess, building motors is the whole social media thing. It helped me bring it up there. And, I'm hopefully I made other people, step their game up and go like, oh, we can't just half-ass it anymore. Or if we do, they'll know. So I started doing a little more education on it too, because I would explain a lot of things what I was doing and why I did them, and I was constantly showing how important it was to balance crankshafts and to true everything up, and to make a quality engine. Now, having said that, it's like you're working with lawnmowers, right? Like a shovel head is like I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not bad mouthing. It's just like they're such a horrible engine, and vibrating, no power. I mean, but there's something about the sound and the look of them that I love. So,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make them as nice as I could, I guess, without making it looking too futuristic. So in the beginning, it was all about making them look old,
Yeah.
and feel that way. And then near the middle, it was just making them ridiculously reliable, so the damn things wouldn't even leak.
Yeah.
Which eventually they did. But I mean, and then it transcended into making them look a little more, I don't know, not artistic, more mechanical looking, not so much chopper-like. And then, I just slowly transitioned over to the bagger stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
I sold everything to get that.
Yeah, it seemed like, because like I said, when I got on board of watching you on social media and whatnot, it was, I saw the kind of end of like, I'm not taking on any more motors. And then you had just like released the FXR swing arm that was, that billet swing arm that was just fucking, nobody had put anything like that into the.
No, that kind of put us on the map because, I mean, I wanted to get into the whole FXR Dyna thing because it was new to me. I didn't know nothing about FXR. I still don't.
Yeah.
FXRs or Dynas. I don't claim to be like a guru of these bikes at all. So, getting into them, I wanted to, and then buy my first CNC machine, I wanted to basically get involved with making them. All my bikes, I always wanted to make a Harley look like it had a one night stand with a MotoGP bike or a bag, like.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And then that's what came out was what I'm trying to make still today. So, when I got into that swing arm thing, I really wanted to, almost get accepted into that scene, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And not step on toes and try not, because I'm not in the scene whatsoever because I'm up here, right? So I don't know anybody. I don't travel anywhere. I just stay up here. So I can only, put my perspective on what I think is cool on it.
Yeah, I mean, you like I said, you brought a flavor to it. And I think it was at the right time too, because all the bikes seem to be going towards more of a, that, like you said earlier, mechanical kind of more performance vibe. And whether it was stemmed from the Dyna FXR culture and evolved into the bagger culture, but it still was there. And so like, you putting in some input into it was definitely, like you said, the right time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't know. I really didn't.
Yeah.
All I started seeing because when you're deep into the chopper scene, you don't see anything else. You only basically bury yourself into that and the hand built motorcycles and the craft of, basically hand building a frame or a tank or a fender and, machining your motor. You're so deep into that, you don't notice other trends or other things that are going on outside of that.
Yeah.
So I started noticing it, and then I thought, I got a CNC machine and I'm gonna, start building parts for this. I started building a road race style looking shovel head, like it was an FXE.
Yeah.
And I hand made out of sheet metal swing arm, and that's what started it all.
Yeah.
Is when I hand made that swing arm, and that was a nightmare in itself. Man, that took so much time.
Yeah, I was looking at that today, and I was like, man, is that one block? Like,
no, it's all sheet metal cut out, welded all together, metal finished, reinforced, made to fit on basically an FLH style frame with a shovel head. And I raised the transmission up 2.5 inches to get ground clearance, so when you lean over, you wouldn't scrape.
Yeah.
Belt drive, so the belt was facing upward, and not straight back. And then I got piggyback shocks for the rear, and I put an R1 front end on it and R1 wheels, and I deraked it to like a ridiculous derake on it, and so it would turn like on a dime.
Well, it seems like the D-rake thing is like really gained traction over the last, like, you know, me being not being very knowledgeable, but it seems like from just an outsider looking in, like the last year and a half, it's just become, you know, immensely popular amongst
on
the
chopper scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few guys that kind of brought it to light, and it looked cool right off I like it. Like, I really like looking at a D-rake bike. Like, it's, to me, a cool looking bike. Some people think it looks ridiculous. They'd rather it the other way. But I'm the type of guy who likes a 6-over front end on a 30-degree neck that's like ridiculously too high, and the geometry is all off, but it has that nostalgia look. And then I like some of these other guys. I forget their names. They built some like beautiful looking bikes that got like one of them had like a truss style, girder style front end, and he does like, I think a 6-spoke or something, like an Invader wheel, and they're all black. And I don't even know the guy, but I really like looking at his bikes, and that's what I've seen. And then of course the Japan scene is like insane. They take it to like the most extreme possible level.
Yeah, I haven't even noticed the Japan scene yet, but I've realized that they have a big one, you know.
Well, the Japan scene is, they take it to extremes, and it's, you know, it's a different culture, it's a different style over there. It's a different world over there. It might as well be. It's like you're in a different planet. But, you know, being in North America and seeing the D-rake scene is, I D-rake for performance, I didn't D-rake for a look. And, you know, there's a certain style and look to the D-rake on it, and I like it. As long as it's not too extreme, I guess. They get some guys who jack them like way up and get the frames to go way up. And
I fell in love with the D-rake FXRs, and I guess one of the main guys I've noticed doing it is Al Emerson, something like that. And man, he just like, all he really posts is like the frames, and they just look so dialed in, so nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all about that shit right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that's what I like about bikes. There's so many styles, and there are so many different things that you can gravitate towards to that, you know, which obviously is important that you like. It doesn't matter what anybody else is like. It's because there's so many mixed people out there getting into motorcycles now that have zero background in mechanical aptitude, so they're going off aesthetics and what is eye-pleasing to them. Which is, that's totally cool, because it helps grow all this different styles and different makes as far as D-rake or performance or like the chopper style, or I mean, there's so many different styles of bikes out there.
Well,
it's great.
I think that you know, I had an FXR. It was my first one I ever did, and I learned so much about older bikes because I started
that gold one.
Yeah, I started my
that thing's cool. I like that.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, so I started my Harley, you know, career, I guess you'd call it, in twin cams and baggers. So you know, we were doing the big wheel shit back in 12 and 10 and 11 and all the way up to about 16, and then you know the meeting people in the FXR scene and falling in love with that and the Dyna stuff, it just kind of like made me feel like, oh, there are other cool motorcycles out there. And it's slowly become less and less of, like you were saying, an aesthetic for me, and more of just like, man, I just like all these different types of bikes now. Like, I'm not only attracted to the ones that are popular anymore, you know? So
yeah, that's a good thing. That's growth is what it is. You get some people who just get, you know, they like one type of bike and they want to die with that bike, and that's it, and that's their thing, and they don't want to broaden their horizons. So, you know, it's kind of cool that you're seeing that side of it, because it just makes for, I guess, a bigger appetite for motorcycles, makes you appreciate more, makes you see things differently. So it opens your eyes to a lot of things.
And I mean, between that, and it just makes it to where like you can really have a bigger mixture of like people around. Like, you know, once you start loving more than one type of bike, then you're not so judgmental on the ones that you're not accustomed to in your little circle or whatever.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Like I remember years ago I met a bunch of guys with big wheel bikes, and you know, I rode up on my shovel, jockey shift, foot clutch, and they're digging the bike, and they thought it was cool, and they were super nice guys. So, I mean, before that, I was making fun of big wheel baggers all the time, and then I felt like a total asshole because, you know, here I am making fun of these guys, never even met them before, never even knew what they're about or why they're into them, or you know, I mean, let's face it, a lot of these guys, it's not to taint it, but a lot of these guys have money and they just want to have something that's cool in their garage and, you know, ride around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's those other guys who really like their big wheel baggers and go so deep into them it's not even funny. And I can appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
You know,
I've said that before. There's a handful of builders out there that are still building them that is like taking it to another level that is less like cake decorations and more like getting into like deep mechanical, you know, recreating shit, putting different front ends on these bikes and taking them to another
there
levels.
was one brown one that had a Springer front end and no front fender.
It was probably like a Sick Pipes, I think. It was one of theirs or something.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah.
I really dig that bike.
Yeah, that
like,
bike's super
bike was
badass.
super. I looked at that and went, man, okay, that's cool. I like that. So I mean, it separated himself from everybody. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. There's all sorts of cool stuff out there. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many guys who get zero recognition, but they're not even. A lot of these guys, believe it or not, I mean, I know a lot of them that aren't even looking for recognition. They're just doing it because they're doing what they want, sort of thing. So on my behalf, I'm building a business, so I have to put it out there all the time.
Well, some of these guys have, you know, like a lot of them started their businesses when, you know, they really relied on their local presence. You know what I mean? As far as pulling in local work and local people. So
Yes.
they probably, you know, I'm sure like one of my favorite guys is a DA Performance. Now that's a place in Chicago that, you know, they're a big name across the country in the big wheel bagger market, but they're a ground level company that mainly handles local and like people that ship in their stuff. But they relied more heavily on, you know, hey, being at this sound off competition or this big wheel bagger show and this, that, and the other is what really has kept them in business, as opposed to some of us have resort, I don't know the right word to say, to using social media to promote our businesses and promote the products or services we sell, and less on the local on the local scale. So
yeah, I mean that's it. I guess it all depends on your demographic and your business or where you live, and you know, a lot of that plays into what type of clientele you're going to have and what you're into. So, you know, this is what I'm into now, the whole performance bagger thing. I got into it because I tried out a twin cam, and then I noticed my audience started changing right away as far as me working in my shop mechanical wise, you know, doing repairs and oil changes and engine builds and whatnot, because I quickly moved over to that and noticed a shift in clientele, because as far as the chopper thing went, there wasn't a lot around here. There was some, but not a lot. And then when I went into the more modern bikes, obviously my business started blowing up as far as service work is concerned.
yeah,
And then, so I mean, I was around, I guess, when before Instagram. I was, and I realized, but I was in my garage, so I was the typical guy. I mean, it almost seems like everybody starts in the garage.
yeah, that's the only way to do it nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't afford to go out. Like, it's different here. In order for you to have a shop, you have to have a mechanic license. You got to be a motorcycle licensed mechanic.
Oh, you do up there? That's crazy.
Yeah, you can't just start and open a shop. So you got to have a lot of paperwork, and then there's insurance and compliancy, and then there's a lot going on over here when you basically kind of open a shop. You just can't open a shop. You got to be.
Man, if they did that down here in the
legit.
States, man, I think half the people would just be like, oh, well, fuck it, I'm going to work at Walgreens or something, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have Walgreens up there.
It's very, Canada's very European-ish like compared to the U.S. when it comes to some of the rules. So
Yeah.
you know, I think things are different here. That's for sure.
I think we're
But, I
more
mean,
Puritans down here, I guess is the word for it. We won't let go of the old ways.
Well, I mean, there's a romance about that too, though. So, you know, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, having said that, here, look at me, how much I've evolved over the last few years.
Yeah. Well, I get it. I agree. I would have to say I agree with you because, you know, part of me, you know, you get me at a table with a bunch of dudes talking about social media and talking about promoting yourself. And I'm like, dude, like, you got to make it this, you know what I mean? You have to hustle it. But there's also the other part of me that's like, I would love to not have any of it and just have like a shop in the back of my house in the middle of the woods. And I occasionally came out of the woods to show the world what I did, and then I go back into hiding. There's something romantic about that to me as well, to where I don't feel the pressure of constantly performing. Like, oh shit, I haven't done anything in 2 weeks, man. My Instagram audience is gonna hate me now. So,
yeah. There's from a business point of view, I mean, it's a must. It's definitely not something I enjoy. Social media, I definitely don't enjoy that part of it as much as I do creating and obviously doing the bike thing. So, I mean, I liked it back then where, in order to get noticed or in order to create business, you had to go to bike shows. You had to go out there and socialize with the general public in events. Now, you don't have to. You just go on social media. You can be halfway across the world and create your own entity, via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, what have you. So, I mean, it's definitely changed the world over the last 10 years has dramatically changed.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I keep, I don't know the end game for it, but in our motorcycle industry, there's still a lot of old ways of thinking, when it comes to certain people of power, I guess you would say, if there is. And, there's real soon, there's going to be some kid that's more popular than anybody that ever rode in X Games and shit like that. That's just riding a Dyna or a fucking FXR or a Bagger all over the place. And because of social media, he's going to be a celebrity in the motorcycle industry. And he didn't really build anything, or, whatever the case may be. He's not a Jesse James or some shit that was on TV, because social media is making it to where we can all be famous in some form or fashion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, it's kind of sad because it pushes aside the craftsman.
Yeah, it does. It really, dude. I've said this 1,000 times on this podcast. I was like, I grew up in this motorcycle scene when, we went to bike shows to see the people we saw on TV, the craftsmen and the builders and the painters. And now the people that sell and make T-shirts are more famous than the biker builders.
I know, right? It's kind of funny. That's why on my Instagram, I always once in a while, I got to post some older stuff and say, to my new followers, like, did you maybe realize like what I used to do?
Yeah.
I didn't just start building bagger parts. I mean, and CNC stuff. Like I had no fingerprints and no nails and like.
You put in the time, man.
sand through metal and aluminum until my fingers bled. So, this wasn't just like, I have CNC machines. I'm going to make parts.
Yeah.
It evolved definitely, but evolved quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. It's happening all so quick that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Technology, man. As soon as you get a hold of technology and it gets a hold of you, it's a roller coaster ride.
I mean, it's kind of done the same thing for the paint world. I mean, it hasn't been as noticeable, I think, especially for the outside public. But I mean, pinstripers kind of went to a point where they were kind of, I wouldn't say getting phased out, but that style of bike was going, or that style of art form was going away when printers and plotters and things like that came out. It kind of killed the craft. But I guess through the resurgence of the TV shows back in the early 2000s, and then now I feel like being a pinstriper is 100% legit business, trade to go learn.
It's rare though. It's rare to find a good guy that knows how to draw lines and sign paint and make it look aesthetically pleasing. But I mean, there's different styles for everybody too. But I'm of one, like, I deeply appreciate sign painting and pinstriping.
I do too.
Because, you would too for obvious reasons. But, I tried my hand at painting because I couldn't find a painter. I couldn't find anybody around here to help me paint, so I had to learn on my own, and I had to learn to pinstripe. I had to learn to gold leaf. I had to do all those things myself, and I wasn't very good at it. I had to make do with what I got. But, it definitely puts a spin on how much you can appreciate somebody doing it the way they do it, like as a craft.
Yeah.
It not just necessarily they're just doing it like I was. They're doing it as a craft. They're doing it to make a living. I mean, there's some guys out there that'll blow my mind. Like if you look at a real pinstripe guy who does scroll work with a scroll brush and just starts throwing it down, and then I define somebody to go ahead and pick a brush up and just try just one.
Well, I think that's everything. Yeah, I think that's everything though, because the same level of there was a starting point and then there was a point you saw it. It's the same thing with like welding and building bikes and machining and all this stuff. It's like everybody's got to start somewhere, but now with social media, you're also seeing where people started now, which sometimes it's not that great. And of course their wives or their moms is like, oh, you're so talented, you know what I mean? And then next thing you know, you got a bunch of people that are, you know, like, put it like this, you can't, it's inappropriate now to give people constructive criticism, right? It's like people can't take it. Yeah,
you get crucified.
But I think it's also in the way we do it. Like we can't just like, oh man, you know, you need to check that shit out on this or that. But you know, then like for instance, Daytona this year, there was some painters there that we were at the Perowitz paint show, and there was some paint jobs there that were, you know, if you're taking a picture for Instagram, they do exactly what they need to do. They look busy, they look wild, blah blah blah. In person, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like,
it's hideous. There's a ton of painters out there like that.
And
like
then
I see them all the time. It sucks because legitimate guys can't make $1. It's like anything else. You get those guys who come in and do it for nothing because they want to be on Instagram. And then next thing you go, guys like yourself or somebody who's, you know, there's some amazing painters out there, and they have a hard time making a living because those guys that want to be famous will just do it to do it and lowball it and budget it to the point of where how can a real professional make a living at it? They do 10 times the work. It looks 10 times better. When you see it up close and in person, it's visually mind-bending, where the stuff on social media is like you can all sorts of great filters.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you said like when people aren't appreciating it and they're not paying you to do it anymore, then it's kind of like, you know, you lose the drive. Because,
you lose it all. You tend to like get, like I said, it jades you really quick to the point of where, you know, you become like I became vocal. I became like that guy that like, you know, would call people out or say, no, that's wrong. And I may stop doing that because of the business side of me. The world's changed. You can't do it. So, you know, I'll see something that's like, how did you come to that? Or what made you do that? Or, you know, there's all sorts of stuff out there. Who made that for you? Because you didn't make it. You don't even own machines. Yeah. But yet you're portraying yourself as, you know, making parts, or you've got your name on them.
There's also that older bike shop mentality where, you know, the bike shop doesn't tell you who paints their bikes or who powder coats or who welds. They're just the facilitator for all the different talents that there is to build one bike. And
they take all the credit.
Yeah. So and then the magazine comes out and it's like Joe Blow Customs. I mean, dude, if I was to get all the credit I've ever done cover bikes for Easy Rider and Hot Bike and all this shit, I'd have a wall looking like some of the, you know, some Dave Perowitz or some shit. You know what I mean? But you do all these bikes, and you know, in my early days, like you do them, and you know, the shop is just like, man, fuck it. It was my shop. I paid this guy. He worked for me. Screw it. You know, I'm the airbrush guy. You know what I mean? And it kind of sucks. But I mean, nowadays with like the curtain being pulled back and everybody sees who everybody's doing for everybody, you know, it's like, it's kind of killing that. I guess the shop pimp is what I would call it. You know, the guy that just knows everybody to get the job done, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's a lot of magic being lost. You know, there's a lot of facades in this industry.
Yeah.
And you get to a certain point though where you don't let it bother you and it doesn't bother you, because I mean, those guys they don't last.
They don't.
They have their core crew or demographic that basically are never going to evolve from that point. And if they do, they move on. Like there's all sorts of guys who are into motorcycles for you know, the popularity, or they want to be cool, or it's something to do however they want to do it. Yeah. And then eventually they move on, they do something else, and then, you know, they can tell their buddies, I used to do that. And then there's guys like us who are like myself, or I don't know, I don't want to call myself a diehard, but you know, we love motorcycles, all motorcycles. It doesn't matter what it is. But I like them all. What I don't like are a lot of the people that own them and why they own them and how they do what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like the motorcycle industry. Can you imagine the motorcycle industry if people helped each other instead of just got jealous or
Well, that's what
aggravated?
I've noticed once I kind of left the big wheel scene. Now, I'm not trying to just bash big wheels, but I noticed that more people were quick to say you copied me, because your bike is blue and their bike is blue, and it's just always drama, and instead of to me, when I started hanging around with the FXR crew, the people in that scene, it was more of like, people weren't trying to like say if my buddy found a cheap ass FXR and he couldn't get it, he wouldn't, try to up the deal for me to make money off me. He was more like, dude, I know you're looking, there's a badass bike over here. So I know it's not quite what you're talking about, helping people, but it kind of starts on that ground level of a scene, because those guys are also, like, a lot of them work on their own shit, which is why there's not a whole lot of money in the FXR world compared to like the bagger world, where most of those guys want to pay someone to do their service work and their oil changes, so it's hard that a scene is so much more passionate about a bike, but it is really almost impossible to make a living off of those bikes unless you're, just basically a guy that buys all the parts and hoards them and then sells them here and there, so
Yeah, you can't. Well, from my business point of view, I cannot. I don't know, the way I do things, the way I machine them, how I manufacture them. I don't try and do it for a budget. I try and do it for aesthetically pleasing, and I want to make the coolest stuff money can buy. And there lies the problem. So it can't. Not everybody can afford it.
Yeah.
And I know that, but there's so many guys doing it that for me to separate yourself is to build, try and build your best of your capabilities.
Yeah.
But to get caught up on that, like I said, the only problem is you lessen your audience immensely. And it's amazing how many people get mad at me because it's expensive. So they get pissed right off because they think I'm ripping them off. And,
dude, I'm dealing with that with helmets right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, in a 2 years span since I literally started CNC stuff, I mean, this is not a sob story, but I sold every single thing I had. Everything I had, like machines, parts. Like, I took pickup truckloads of, chopper stuff and sold it, and sold all my engine equipment, and to scrape up every single penny I could to put so I can finance a brand new CNC machine. And then start making the parts the way I wanted to, i.e. that swing arm.
Yeah.
And that's what started it all. And back then, that swing arm, I was selling it. I can't even remember what I sold it for.
It was a deal. It was like $2,200 on a special or something
like that. And I was like, because I didn't know, I'm like trying to feel it out. I'm trying to feel out, okay, what's this machine worth? If I build these, what's the offset of the cost? Like the materials per hour. I mean, I'm still doing my math, trying to figure out, but still trying to stay, within a certain price range.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that is the worst thing you can do. Is the worst thing you can ever do is try and build to price point. And if you do that, you got to be prepared to build a lower quality product and a lot of it.
Yeah.
And where I have, it's my upbringing. I have so much pride in what I do. I don't want to call it a craft. CNC machining, because the machine does it all in the programming, and there's a lot more to it. It's a different style of art, a different level of it. I don't want to insult the craftsman, because the craftsman does things with his hands and starts with nothing and builds something, which is, for me, like I said, it's magical. It's something that's, there's something like, I hate bringing it up again, but I mean, there's romance. It's very special. So what I do is I hate to say it, but it's a little easier. It's a little it's not as hard. You don't get dirty. You don't. But the amount of money you have to, upkeep that or bring that machine to life as far as parts on a regular basis
It's got to justify.
Extremely expensive. But yeah, I mean, I don't just make these prices up because you get the average person just doesn't understand because they're not machinists. I mean, if they are machinists, they're Bridgeport lathe, manual machinists. They're not CNC programmer machinists. They don't have to pay for the software and the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tooling. Like a barrel of coolant goes really quick because constantly got to change it all, and it basically goes through coolant like you wouldn't believe, like the machines, if you got to keep everything clean. And I don't know, I can ramble on about this forever, but I guess my point is that it's extremely expensive to do high volume, high quality machine parts. It's astronomically expensive, and I didn't know it was going to be this expensive. But the higher the quality of my product, the nicer tooling and the machines you have to have.
Yeah.
So, it goes hand in hand. The expensive equipment's got to be paid for by the parts. So,
well, I think to stay in the course like you're doing is it's got to be working out well. I mean, maybe the FXR crowd wasn't quite willing to fork up the money for the a swing arm and things like that. Most of these dudes are just trying to get these bikes to stay on the road. I love those guys, but it is that way sometimes. But I think by finding yourself in the bagger thing, you're kind of leading like an edge on baggers that hasn't really been done before. Like you're taking the big fucking station wagon and you're basically retrofitting it and making it perform like a sport biker as close to it as possible. Which
I told a friend of mine, it's like a loaded cement truck with on nitrous. So for an analogy, it's fun to make fun of. You can't make fun of yourself and your bike. You're taking your stuff too seriously.
You 100%.
Like I constantly make fun of baggers all the time still, and I'm like neck deep in it.
Yeah, so, when you like the whole concept of performance baggers, you're like, okay, how does this like
such an oxymoron? It's like, you what? You should see my sport bike guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I the guys I used to race with, they'll come over to the shop and go, what did you do that? And that's like the dumbest looking thing ever. But I mean, for me it isn't, because they've always been in that world. But there's only a handful of guys in North America that are realistically manufacturing parts with their own machines that they purchased and they own. Not investors, not like a corporate company, not like, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I know I'm a rare breed when it comes to a guy who's making parts. It's like almost unheard of, because I see a lot of guys out there in this industry who are not bike guys.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and they're making parts, and they're making all sorts of stuff, and they're realistically they were a machinist and they had a Harley, and then which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there seems to be an ego side of things that are going on with a lot of it, and ego's like the biggest killer. I get guys who I know in this industry got the hugest ego. It's like
Kanye West.
I don't like, if I had a big ego, I'd be going to every single show there was, and my post would be saying the best and number one, and it's like, I'm just not into it. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. Like, there's no such thing. There's always somebody better. There's always somebody who's gonna try and one up you and move on, and that's almost the fun part of it. And if you take it so serious that you're like, thinking you're being copied, or thinking, it's always going to happen in this industry. Somebody's always going to copy somebody. I mean, there's nothing that hasn't been done. There's guys who've been doing inverted front ends like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to think that's, the guy who brought out an inverted front end on a bagger for the first time is innovative, because it's so not. That stuff has been around forever. So anything I'm doing realistically, it's been already done before.
So, but what you're doing is you're improving it and putting a touch on it. That is what we're all doing. When it comes to like whether it's paint or building any kind of parts, you're basically putting your twist on something and modifying it or making it perform better or have a different look.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun of it, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you keep it in perspective and it's fun and not like get carried away with the scene and the popularity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's where I was heading with it. It's kind of like there's so many guys that are I don't know, seem to like doing it for the wrong reason. There's guys out there who have a full-time job and are getting parts made and putting their name on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that somebody's trying to make a living at it, but it almost belittles the industry as far as I'm concerned. It almost takes like it's like a guy who owns a paint shop
mm-hmm.
and then send all his paint out, to get it painted, and then puts his name on it.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. There's so much of that right now happening. There's so many shops that want to be, draw attention to themselves to be the next, or to be a leader, they think, or to be cool in a situation. This is me sounding like I'm being jaded, but it's not. I just see it so much.
Yeah.
And I choose to ignore it and go, like, you know what, if that's their thing, more power to them. Who the hell am I to say? So like I said, I'll just bury my head and do my own thing and keep moving forward with what I like. I mean, I heard somebody say that entrepreneurs or people raise up a little bit or more or quicker because they make the parts for themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And like they make the parts for themselves, not get somebody else to make them for them. So, I mean, that's where it stems from. Like, you got to go out and we have to buy our bikes full retail.
Yeah.
And rip them apart, knowing that you're never going to get your money back in this, and develop pieces and equipment that goes onto it. So, now I'm getting back into the engine side of things because.
I saw you make that post, Well, about the M8s,
It's delicate though because I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I don't want to compete with the so-called leaders in the industry. That's not my goal here. It's the reason why I do things is because I either get I ask for help, not for free. I don't go phone call and say, hey, can you sponsor me? I get that daily too, by the way. It's like everybody's calling me, bro, do you want to help me out? And it's like, oh my God, I got to make a living like everybody else. So
Yeah.
I don't ever go there. So, I don't ask for the same thing. I don't go there and say, expect anything from anyone. So, but when they offer, and I'm excited about it, and I want to do what's called cross promotion.
Yeah.
Meaning that I will be more than happy to pay or hand over a ton of parts so we represent each other.
Mm-hmm.
You almost trade
like a barter.
something in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a barter system, but at the same time, it should be fun. You should almost like.
Well, when you're building relationships,
you kind of get to know it. Yeah, you build a relationship. You kind of want to know that guy. To me, it's like I want to hang out with them, and go to a show. That's part of the fun of a motorcycle.
Yeah,
is getting to know certain people, and it's gotten so commercial to be like, well, you better hashtag me, or you better give me a shout out, or you better. And I get it's building their business, but at the same time, I still look at it. It has to be fun. It has to be a camaraderie. It has to be, a two-way street where.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily I scratch yours, you scratch mine. It's just like we're befriending each other, and building a relationship. So, there's not a lot of that out there. I've been hit with a few times where I wanted to do that with people, and I gotta, it went sideways.
Yeah, dude, business deals are hard nowadays, man. Like, you really gotta. The lines between friendships and business and people just respecting that boundary. Like, hey man, I'm willing to do X amount as as a, promotional deal for each other. But this part, you can't expect this too, like it gets kind of, the lines get blurred there sometimes for things. And I found it every time, a lot of the times I've tried to do that, work with different people. I found it that, people don't always they don't always honor 100% of their end of the deal, which then makes the whole deal look just kind of worthless. It's just a lot, man. Like I think what it boils down to is that, like, when someone says they're going to do something or they say they're going to put their best foot forward, like a lot of people don't have that same kind of,
moral.
Yeah, it's like I got it, like I will put that promise before almost everything else in my life because I want to make sure that my reputation and Jace is known as the guy that does what he says he's going to do. And a lot of people don't have that same kind of mentality. Like, well, dude, I just can't. It ain't happening. I got kids or some shit,
To defend the people that have been doing that for a long time, too. I mean, they've been in your situation, or they've been burned so many times with the same thing that, I always put the shoe in the other foot. Like, I always look at their situation. Like, I'm dealing with this guy, and I want to trade him, whatever. But at the same time, he's probably been burned 10 times over.
Yeah.
By the same thing that I'm talking about to this guy, saying, hey, why don't we trade? Then there's no money out of, each other's pocket. And, I know you need my stuff and I need your stuff, so let's try that. But like I said, that poor guy's probably been burned 10 times over and had to learn the hard way. So it's difficult to get those things to move forward as far as what we're saying as a moral, obligation to each other. Because let's face it, every time we do something like that nowadays, because of the way the world works or this industry works, you're always going to look at the guy sideways. Yeah. You're always going to be like, okay, how's this guy going to get me?
You know what I miss though? You know what I miss out of this equation we're talking about right now is
what's that? The
reason to build something. Like, I know that we have our personal reasons, we want to build a nice bike, but with hot bike kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but kind of fading away with the hot bike tour. And not that it didn't really have enough years to really like make a good hold. And I hope they keep doing it, but there's not a lot of shit like purpose, like reason to build a badass bike. Like, oh, this is a deadline. I'm trying to be here at this event. Like, there's not you have chopper shows everywhere. And then you have big wheel bagger shows everywhere. And then you have these Dyna FXR things that are pretty dope, but there's no real prestigious type situation to build and ride it to and not be a popularity contest and all this. And I miss that. Like, I don't know. I wish that stuff was like the concept or what Hot Bike Tour was supposed to be, build a bike, ride it from city to city, on a tour. And then, just whether it's the people voting, like, I don't give a shit about winning a thing, but just a reason to build something cool,
Yes.
And ask new people to do it.
It helps grow everything. And there's nothing like that out there. I know there isn't. I mean, like I said, I mean, there's going to be guys getting mad at me. The chopper thing is dead as far as, and it's only dead because things die because there's no income. Mm-hmm. If you can't make a living off it, that's just the way it is in society. If there's no income being made off of it, it's not gonna prosper. So, the whole motorcycle scene, there's so many different takes on so many different things out there that right now the big shows, believe it or not, everything seems to be out in California because of the weather, because of the scene,
the riding.
The riding and the popularity of certain types of motorcycles. So, the FXR Dyna thing is huge in California. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit out east that I noticed, but that's pretty much the hub of it all. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to take somebody who wants to spend a ridiculous amount of time and effort of their own and have zero gain in order for something like this to happen. And unfortunately, because of everybody's got to make a living, sometimes shows have the best intentions in the beginning, and near the middle things change, and near the end, by the time it's not necessarily run its course, but it turns into a corporate entity. The bike shows turn into a corporate sideshow.
Well, I don't see. I preach to people all the time. It's like, look, dude, if someone's taking the time to create an opportunity or an event or something, maybe the year or two or however long it takes to get off the ground is fine, that it's not like profitable. But at some point, if you're having a good time, why are you mad that the person that put it on is making money? Like, you could be at home sitting on your ass right now,
That's another thing too. Like, I look at the same. There's a lot of guys who were took it to that corporate level, and then the grassroots guys get upset because the corporations are involved, and I get that, because they kind of want to have that old feel, that old wholesomeness to it, and it gets lost when you start putting up neon banners and free giveaways, and to defend the guys that are putting on the events. Yes, I mean, like, there's so much time and effort that's being put. Like, I hate to say it, but that Born Free thing, when those guys are putting it on, I won't name names. I know everybody knows who they are. I mean, those guys busted their asses.
Yeah.
For years, and because they love motorcycles and they wanted a scene. And then, they got crucified because they started trying to make a little bit of money off of it to subsidize the time that it took away from their families and their work and their... I mean, it's just... People don't realize that. They're so self-needy.
Everybody wants...
They don't look at that side of it.
It seems like a lot of people want to take, but they don't want you to be able to take either. Like, they want... Like, nobody wants to see anybody else doing good, is what it seems like sometimes.
That's the way it is, though.
Yeah.
And it's good that you got podcasts like this. So maybe me saying something, or people hearing stuff like this might realize, say, you know what, that's who cares? What should be important is the event and the type of people you get to meet at the event and be around.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. What matters is that that event that's happening, you get to build a bike for that event and show it to your peers. To me, that's what it's for. To me, I like showing off to my peers. The general public, they generally don't understand, but you get another builder or another guy that's into what you're into, and you try and one up him, not for greed or not for self gratification. It's for
just
camaraderie, that
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing. It should be a healthy challenge. Like I said earlier, can you imagine if you had, I try and reach out to other guys
Mm-hmm.
in this industry, and I've gotten my face slapped like you wouldn't believe, and it was like, the intentions were real, like, hey, why don't we join forces, or why don't we, team up, or why doesn't everybody, try and get along here? But the egos are so big in this industry, and that's what tends to wreck it. It's testosterone and ego. It just takes over everything.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, it's like it gets ruined. Whatever you started or whatever you try to get going gets ruined.
Well,
there's guys out there right now that I wish we were friends because they're in the same things I'm into, and I want to be their friend.
Yeah.
But their ego's so big, and their thirst for popularity, tends to wreck everything.
Well, what they're doing, and what I feel like they're doing, is they're playing a short game in the industry. Like, maybe, and this goes back to my concept of, like, when you have somebody that's truly in love with the motorcycle culture and industry as a whole, then when they get the opportunity to help it grow beyond their front porch, basically, things that might not, like, monetize back to them 100%, but they're helping the industry grow in a positive direction that keeps us all in business. It's like most people are not willing to put in the effort without that kind of, like, guarantee, like, oh, well, if I'm doing this, I need this. It's like you got to put in something into it, man. You don't want, once again, I'm referencing my buddies, like, you don't want this industry to crumble when we're the leaders of it. That means that we're pieces of shit. And no matter how talented we are or innovative we are, these dudes managed to keep this industry going in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, but somehow in the teens, our egos were too big and we couldn't make the motorcycle industry thrive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, it's always going to be that way. You got to look at the whole motorcycle thing. It gravitates towards a certain type of personality too, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there should be a point in your so-called motorcycle career, if you're making a living off it, where the brain should kick in and you just start realizing certain things that are beneficial to everybody. And not everybody does that. So it's just unfortunate. It's the way it is, and you have to roll with it. Hopefully it's not going to... I hate to say it, but I see the industry is hurting right now, and it's hurting bad. And I think it's got a lot to do with that. I'm not blaming manufacturers. I'm not blaming one individual. I'm just blaming, society as a whole. That things have changed and the demographic has changed. So, the passion's just not there. It's a different world we live in.
Imagine this, like, so maybe before social media, like, you the only way you would really know what was going on with the other shop around the corner was if you saw them at a bike show, or some customer walked in and said, "Hey, did you hear about Joe Blow down the street? They're doing crazy shit." And then that fires you up and you're like, "Fuck, man, am I mad? Am I motivated? I don't know." But now you got social media where you just, you're doing stuff, but then all day long you're seeing everybody that you're in competition with. And some people have more animosity towards competition than the others. So they're like, it creates a lot of, testosterone, like you were saying, that's not, positive, as opposed to, everybody just being like, "Fuck, man, like, that's really badass. I thought I was doing something great until you came along, and now I need to rethink my steps." And that's basically how it should be,
Yeah. There should be a healthy way of thinking about it, a positive way of thinking about it, not negative. There's too much. I mean, I should be one to talk because I was so jaded in the beginning, but, it just boils down to that there should be some sort of respect and camaraderie. And if it's not reciprocated, then you know where you stand right away.
Mm-hmm.
So it just boils down to that. I talked to a few guys in this industry, and it's very few, and I try and give that respect. There's a reason why I don't make front ends.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice that? I'm not trying to be like, inverted front end guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a few guys out there. Well, there's a couple of main guys in my industry that are doing it,
mm-hmm.
and I don't want to come along and I don't want to cause a bidding war. I'm not into that. I mean, I build front ends for guys that I do, but I'm not going to out there advertise it and push that product or that side. So I try and do things. This is morally what people don't think about, I guess, is that I try and do things that not everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, not everybody's going to do certain things that I'm doing, but I haven't said that. It's, once again, we get down to the cost thing. It's so bloody expensive, the stuff I do. It's not for everybody.
Well, it's almost like you jumped on the parts and you took a liking to the areas of the bikes that are commonly overlooked, and it's probably due to the cost of manufacturing a part to make this area look better or more efficient or more user friendly for the
I like to think so, yes. Like it just boils down to that. Like, the swing arm doesn't stand out like a sore thumb because it's hidden under the bags, but it's the very intense piece on the motorcycle
mm-hmm.
that when you do see it, I want it to be the most mind-blowing thing you see. And then when it comes to, like I said, a lot of things I made or do because I couldn't get cooperation.
Yeah.
So it's my own way of saying, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to make it. It's a spiteful thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it motivates you. So I get my motivation from people slamming the door in my face.
Mm-hmm.
It heavily motivates me to, with that, or being underestimated, or people that say, it's a defiance thing, like, you can't do that. And then I end up doing it, and then I overdo it. So, I don't know where we're going with this, or I got off topic, but what I'm basically saying is that there's certain guys in this industry here that are doing certain things, and I'm trying not to step on toes. And like, there's a million guys out there making foot pegs.
Yeah.
I don't go out and heavily promote my foot peg. I had one shop that crucified me because I started making Dynaparts and foot pegs. And people wonder why I don't make Dynaparts and foot pegs anymore, because there was a couple of shops out there that basically threatened me and turned it into a drama situation to the point where I was not enjoying it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys were friends in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then they were saying, well, you're building their, that's our audience. And I'm like, dude, it's a foot peg.
Yeah.
Who doesn't build a foot peg? I'm not trying to steal anybody from you.
Well, that's to me, that's an ignorant way of thinking, because those dudes that, like without competition, without like innovation, then things are stale. Nothing ever grows. Nothing ever changes. Everything stays the same.
Yeah.
And so your industry never changes. So it's like you need people to come along and to
healthy competition.
Yeah, push people, because dude, if the answer to success in life was to create one item that sold okay or well or whatever, and that was it, you made it, then okay, maybe I get it. Like, okay, dude, you fucked up my meal ticket. But at this point, like everybody, there's every major company has a peg, just about. You got your Roland Sands, your PM, fucking Kuryakin, and gel, whatever. Everybody does. And the problem is the one thing that a lot of shops don't realize. They realize that they have a demand for people that want their brand of something, right? Oh man, people dig us. They want something for us. Well, an inexpensive thing to sell to customers is a foot peg. It's way cheaper than making bars. It's way cheaper than making swing arms, right? Yeah. And some of us, have a following or a audience that wants something from us. They want a peg from MJK, or they want a peg from, Boosted Brad or somebody else, right? And if that's the case, then that's your audience, that's your clique, those people associate with you, and that's fine. There's enough to go around, man.
There is.
And some people build more than one bike.
So saturated though.
Yeah.
It's overly saturated to the point of where I don't even want to begin to try and go there. So, and it's tough. Sometimes that's all. Some of these guys, that's where they have to go, because they don't make the part. They have to get it made. So that's stemmed back to that too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I always show a lot of my machining. I'm always constantly showing the machine and the tools and what we're doing, because I want the public or the people to know, like, we make our stuff, we design it, we make it, we order our aluminum, we do everything here. There's only a couple of us. It's not like I own this big conglomerate with a dozen machines. It's just, the motorcycle industry can't support that. Unless of course it's made in China, which we all know who those guys are. So, that stuff is that's not my demographic anyways. So
it's like they're all made in China, and then they get remade in China with a little bit cheaper, and then they bitch about it. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, you can't do nothing about it. That used to bother me. A lot of things used to bother me, but as you evolve or as you move forward with your business, you tend to slough that stuff off and not worry about it. Concentrate on your own thing. So, it's good to talk about stuff, though. Like I said, social media, or to make these things aware, or maybe people might look at what I do differently, and they've had a misconstrued, perception of what I do or how I do things or what I'm about. So, maybe this will open eyes, or maybe this will, help them understand other people in the industry and what's happening in the industry, and, the options that they have in the industry. Well, I think that maybe another thing that, maybe this is irrelevant as ever, but I feel like the level of design that goes into the parts you make is probably very intimidating to somebody that doesn't think on that level. And so when people see the amount of effort you put into an axle setup, and these people are looking for the most cost-effective way to put an axle on the market, it's a way different approach at parts and at things, and that's intimidating to people that are used to getting paid to do such little innovation. I don't know.
Well, it's funny, I never thought about it. I just thought, well, I'm going to make this because it looks cool and I like it.
Well, I mean, dude,
that's my whole depth perception of the whole thing. There's no real science behind it. There's science behind designing some of this stuff, but
every once in a while, a friend of mine that paints, I have a bunch. Fortunately, I'm blessed to have a lot of friends that paint across the country. Every once in a while, they'll start doing something that's like, it's it's just a step further, right? And they're offering now.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, now I have to do this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
isn't
but
it awesome though? Isn't
yeah,
it
but
great?
it makes us do better work, and it constantly helps things grow, and it keeps the bar high, because as you know, the things that used to be hard to figure out is not hard anymore with YouTube. So now, you know, some people have to go to school to learn shit, and nowadays you don't. You can just be dedicated and have a internet Wi-Fi access, you know, and you can learn just about everything. So you have to raise the bar.
There's nothing really secret about anything anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I was never one to do that either. When I was building engines, guys would ask me questions left, right, and center. And I always tell them, I'm like, I don't care. This is how it's done. You want to do it? Go do it. You know, it's that simple. I see all sorts of guys that are still holding their cards so close to their chest about, you know, who's wise and what's. And I'm such an open book.
You know, it's a weird thing, a paint related thing. Not too long ago, this has been going around for a while, but some of these dudes, I think it was Japan or Thailand, this dude was doing this swirl paint. It's like a marbleized look. Fucking just amazing. And those dudes over there are on another level. So I try not to talk about them too much. That way us Americans don't lose our money over there to that. But they do badass work. And then I've heard of people reaching out to them to say, hey man, like how did you do that? You know, just like that's honestly what a lot of us painters do. Like when we see something cool and my friends are like, hey dude, how'd you pull that off? And because I want to know, generally because I want to not necessarily do it and copy you, but just, dude, I want to know, like that shit's fucking badass. But this dude was like, oh, you know, he wouldn't tell nobody. He even responded to some of my friends with fuck you, and just that's it. And now this morning I woke up and I Googled it on YouTube, and there's 400 people damn near making videos of how to do it. And I'm like, your secret's out now, dude, bro. You know what I mean? It's not that gone anymore, you know, but it's just
there should be no secrets. Like I mean, having said that though, so he's trying to make his living off of that. That's a problem with nowadays trends though too, right? Think about this. You have something that's new, innovative, and great. It's not long before it's phased out.
Yeah.
Or becomes like, oh, that was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
things don't last anymore.
It is. The saddest part about the whole deal is no matter how innovative or original or just mind blowing it was, a year from later, people are going to be doing it, and you've got to be on to the next thing. So it's kind of, it goes back to that whole concept earlier. It's not as romantic to like have a breakthrough in life like it might have been for, you know, Einstein or some shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's like we have to break through every year now.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But then you get the guys who, what the problem with is the guys who are in the industry, they'll do it, but they'll do it cheaper than the next guy.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they'll find the ways to cut costs. So cheaper, yes.
Yeah,
and
it just belittles the whole process down the line. So I mean, I reached out to these guys who are doing the front ends. One he wants something to do with me, but the other guy and I says I'm going to do front ends too, but I'm only going to do those inverted like $13,000 fork tube front ends.
Yeah.
Like the audience for that is like very, very far and few between. Don't get me wrong, I've been lucky. I've sold a few of them, but at the same time, you know, I reached out and said, hey, just so you don't think I'm trying to take, you know, trying to do this or go in competition with you, I'm not. Because I think they're 4 times more expensive than yours. So if anything, it will cause people to run to you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, that guy's crazy, you know?
Well, you know what I've been hearing a lot? I've some of the people I know have been kind of going, the people I knew in the big wheel stuff, they've been kind of going towards the performance bagger thing. And I've seen a lot of people buying BST wheels. And, you know, I'd be like, hey, man, so I see you got the BSTs. What kind of suspension are you going to put on there? And nothing wrong with Legends and stuff because I'm probably going to run that. But, I'm just going to do like some Legends. And I'm like, dude, I know you. You have the money to buy the nicer shit. And I know you and you want all nice shit. So why, dude, I can't spend $7,000 on suspension. I'm like, your last bike had a $7,000 front wheel only. Yeah. Like, how do you justify this?
$20,000 paint job, a $7,000 front wheel, you know? they just want to show off the whatever's happening.
And this, I guess this is my argument with it all, is like, that front wheel just is a wow factor, yes, but so is a fucking badass Öhlins front end. That's a wow factor for people that know what they're looking at, which might be not every dude at a 7-Eleven gas station, but for the most part, you pull into a place where a lot of other bikers are, they're gonna be like, damn, dude, we've seen those on Pinterest before. That's some money right there, you know? So it's like, you know, why is the justification okay for certain parts to be outrageous, but not the other?
I think that's what's going to hurt the bagger, performance bagger industry, is that the big wheel guys, not to belittle them, but the big wheel guys aren't very mechanical oriented. A lot of them are, but a lot of the money guys, they don't. They don't understand what that front end represents and what it is. Yeah. So therefore, it's meaningless to them. Mm-hmm. So they hear carbon fiber, and when they hear carbon fiber, they think of, like, I don't know, Formula One, or, you know, some cool exotic, you know, car that they've seen, and to them that's badass and that's cool, and that's a representation of, you know, wealth or money or showing off something. Yeah. Where me, it's like that with that front end, with my swing arm, and then a bunch of the other parts that I'm making. Obviously, it's not to represent wealth or anything. It's basically a take from the highest end of motorcycle motorsports in the world, which is, like, we'll bring it up again, MotoGP. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not saying that's a correlation. Well, it is a correlation between the two, but it's definitely not even close to representing that, obviously. But that's the vibe, and that's the feel I'm going for. And where I'm going with this is that these guys, they don't see that. So when they go to a bike show and they don't get the same, I guess, praise or the public wow factor from what you're used to with their big wheel bike, they lose interest.
True. I agree.
So
100%.
I don't think it's going to grow like people think it's going to grow, because, you know, those guys are looking for, you know, who's going to stroke my ego. Yeah. Well, people aren't stroking my ego. Why not? I got this carbon fiber wheel. I have a take on this whole situation. I need to use the restroom real quick though. Can you hold on 1 second? Yeah.
All right, hold on. Yeah. So basically, the way I you know, my opinion, or my, I guess, approach with it, because I've spent a whole year now talking about performance baggers. Yeah. I think for the only way for it to really blossom into a full-fledged, like, scene of its own, like big wheel baggers and Dynas, is the culture needs to be, or the bike itself needs to be appealing to every facet of why people look at motorcycles, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you need the curb appeal, you need the paint, the custom seat, the suspension, the wheels, the motor, the overall stance of the bike. You need all these things, and while they're way different than a big wheel bagger, they can still be just as cool. It just takes like more thought into how to like redesign this thing and look at it with new eyes. And I think that once, you know, some bigger companies, like, we try to do what we can, but, you know, if guys like you or Big Bear or Kraus, if they would get out there and start building these bikes and stop putting solid colors on them and maybe do a little bit more of a paint job, it's going to appeal to more people, you know? I would love to, but I mean, it's different. It's very difficult being up here. Yeah, I know. So, we talked before. yeah, we talked about that. Like, to ship stuff across the line, across that border, it's like, even though I can physically walk across the border, but that boundary is the most expensive boundary known to man. I can't, and that's what's stopping me. What's stopping me from having the crazy paint. And not to take away from anybody up here, I just don't know anybody. And anybody that is in my province is, and I expect a higher quality of paint. There's one guy, I don't want to mention his name, but he's very well known in California. I think you and I talked about him. And I wanted him paint there too, and he was excited to have it. And then I haven't spoke to him since. He reached out and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Probably wondering what the hell I thought you were giving me paint. But I priced it all out like
to box up all these pieces to ship it out there, to get it painted, and to get it back, and you better expect to have some sort of damage at the same time because it's going to happen. So it's out of control when the expense gets there.
Yeah.
I totally get what paint jobs cost, and you know, it's in some cases I look at it and go, holy God, like, the average person doesn't have a clue what it takes to do what you do. I see it personally because I painted.
Yeah.
So when I see certain things on paint jobs that are like, wow, that's incredible. You know, I can see through the bullshit. So, you know, now for me to want to have that next level paint job, I know it's going to be expensive, and I'm okay with it. But man, shipping it there, shipping it back,
there's too much
having damage, it's half the cost of the paint job.
Yeah, there's too much unjustified cost in the deal. But you know, it's not so much that that like you specifically have to do it. I think that, like, you know, like Curtis Hoffman and everybody else out there that's hashtagging this performance bagger thing. It's like, you know, understanding how scenes work and how subcultures work. You know, not everybody is like capable of riding a bike to the level of the suspension that's even a stock. You know what I mean?
Oh,
but
yeah, I know.
But you have
the paint. It's a lot of things. It's like you said.
It's got to be a look of a bike, and I think that the performance look, you know, so the just aesthetics alone is got to be appealing, and I think that it's becoming very appealing to a lot of people because, you know, people got used to seeing Dynas, they got used to seeing FXRs with hiked up suspension, seeing the swing arm and the rear wheel, as opposed to the big wheel world where you were like, you never saw that, you know?
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, now, you know, Harley's coming out with longer bags and people are trading them for people with short ones like I just did.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So
I get that all the time. It's like, you got short bags? I'm like, yeah, I got a couple sets. We trade for long ones? And I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny how the trends move, but I'm trying my damnedest to kickstart it by, you know, doing my little part, I guess. Kevin's doing his part, you know, and it's just we're trying our damnedest to bring it out there, but it's not an easy job, and I don't know how to do it without costing me so much money.
True. Well, I think there's a lot. I mean, there's guys out there, you know, Race Glide's out there doing shit on his bike and making videos, and my buddy Steve Chamberlain's out there, you know, ripping up Michigan, and there's a lot of people. There's individuals out there on Instagram that are making names for themselves in this performance bagger thing, and you know, it's hard to be like, okay, this is the next thing. I wouldn't say that, but I think that the more people that get to experience it, they're going to enjoy the money they spend on their bikes more, right? Yeah. So when they spend money on suspension or any part from you, it's a feel that you get as opposed to, you know, you ride a little bit more smoother, a little bit more control, a little bit more of this, as opposed to like completely taking all the things that make it tight off of it and then you put all like air ride and long shit and you can't turn and, you know, your shit. It's going the opposite direction of what the big wheel thing was. And I think that people should try it and then go ride, you know, enjoy it. Go see what it's like.
Some sort of way. I wish, like I brought out this new triple clamp, and I mean, I tested this.
Is that the one you derect it a little bit?
Yeah, I changed the rake and trail so much that it's not even the same bike. But I mean, I tested that stuff like on a racetrack, and I want to know when it turned in and how it reacted to acceleration, deceleration, long corners, high speed, low speed. I mean, there's all those variations you have to test. And I mean, I got this thing down to me, what I think is the most perfect handling bagger money can buy. Mm-hmm. It goes slow, it goes straight, it can take your hands off the bars going into a corner, it doesn't wobble, there's none of those traits of a bagger. But I mean, having said that, they're newer style, right? So the older bagger guys, I feel bad for, because I constantly get hounded that, do you make any for the older stuff? I'm like, I would love to. I'd love to make everything. but it won't support my payments on my machines, my building, my insurance, it just won't support it.
I will
There's
say
not
that
enough volume.
I've seen a lot of resurgence, because when I was doing big wheel shit, you couldn't give away a pre-09 bagger. Those are worthless to everybody. But now with the stunners wanting them and people wanting a bike to just kind of rip around on, I see people want to spend money in it, but I don't know if they want to spend money on the level of what, or they're definitely not paying me to paint it or anything like that. They're just looking for a ripping bike.
There's a hole right there.
Yeah.
That should be a cue for somebody to go, hey, you know what? We're going to build it for that and lower.
Yeah.
That vintage and lower. And not have to go to the level of what Dale's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't need to go that far. We can only do it to a certain, that should be a cue to somebody to say, why don't I make these parts? And I don't know why they don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. Like, I don't have enough time in a day to do it. I physically don't. I just don't. Like, I did that triple clamp setup in those, and I made several of them only, and they sold right away. So I thought,
well, that's cool.
Okay,
I mean,
I hit a sour note, so I went and made more. I guess my point is that I don't have the time to do it.
Well, the good thing
I don't
is,
have the manpower.
Basically, you're selling out on the products that you make, which is key, right?
Yes.
So the price points there is paying. If hopefully it's all paying for itself, and then that's good, But I think that the parts, like I said, they're innovative, and I think as this scene grows, I don't think that performance bikes in general is. I think we're still in the early stages of it, to be honest with you, because with Harley's new changes in bikes, the new Road Glides, they're fucking amazing. They really are. They're a little pricey in my opinion. I don't think they're worth that much, but they're nice bikes, and the Softails and things like that. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and as the models kind of come out and we get some years behind them, people are going to start. People were trying their asses off to get rid of the triangular swing arm on the Softails, and it's only a looks thing. It's purely a looks issue. You know what I mean? Like,
I would love to build a swing arm for that because I know how I want it to look. But the problem is, therein lies, it's so expensive to have that look and to have that feel out of it.
Yeah.
So it's in your face so much that I don't have the money to go buy a brand new Softail bike, and the problem with that is I have people left, right, and center. I'll give you my bike if you make all these parts for free for me. And it's like, hey, dude, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's dumb business. You may think it's smart business, but it's not, because I'm going to spend 60 hours machining something and 3 weeks designing it and another couple of months testing it to give it away. It just doesn't. I can't do that. So I wish I had more time in the day to make cooler stuff. I'd love to take one of those Softails and go nuts on it. Same with that Indian.
Yeah, the new one.
For fun of it, I reached out to see if anything would happen. Not that I'm saying I'm somebody or anything, because that's not it. But I tagged them, and I mentioned to a few people, and I says, I'd love to get my hands on one of these. And I even put it out there. I physically can't even buy one because apparently they're sold out in Canada.
Yeah.
So you can't even buy one. And then one dealership says, oh, no, if you put this money down, we'll get you one. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And then he says, well, it's not going to be ready till at least, springtime. And I'm like, well, that's too late to develop parts for.
Yeah.
Because by the time I get around to actually physically having that part ready for market, it's going to be fall.
Yeah.
So there goes that opportunity to make money on it. So, I reached out. Hopefully I really wanted somebody to try and, get me that bike, so I can develop those parts. And I would need to keep it, though. I'd have to have the bike for quite a while.
Yeah.
And use and abuse it. And you can't do that with somebody's bike that's his bike.
Well, it sucks because I know certain people in the industry, like they have relationships with dealers that they actually get that kind of a treatment to where they can innovate parts and stuff. But, then you get basically you just get certain areas where dealerships are just completely out of touch with anything going on. And so you just
yeah.
like, you look at like that guy, no matter how big your Instagram is or whatever, you just come off as a guy that's, you know, the vlogger that wants to hook up, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I try to come at them more business oriented, but I mean, I look at their site too. It's really tough. You know how many guys are begging for, you know, from Indian for one of those 1200s? I
And
mean,
you
they
know-
probably get hundreds of emails.
You
Hey,
know,
bro, like I do.
5
really
years ago,
strike.
Indian was begging guys like you to make parts for it. It was so crazy. It's so crazy how different Indian is now than it was 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago,
Yeah.
when they came out with the Chieftain or whatever, they were paying, you know, John Shope at Dirty Bird and fucking, they were reaching out to all these big wheel bagger companies to get them to make parts and front the money.
Wow.
Right? Just make a parts
Yeah.
line, because they knew that if there was the aftermarket, that people would want the bikes, just like Harley has. And even though
Yeah.
Harley's completely ass backwards and they don't want the aftermarket, you know what I mean? Indian
Yeah.
wanted it, and then now it seems like, you know, like, yes, this bike is nice, but did they build it to a spec to where there's no room for improvement or no need to improve it? You know what I mean? Like
Well,
cost.
there's always room.
Yeah,
for
there's always
improvement
room.
for anything. Yeah.
but
Like, doesn't matter what it is, what car, what bike, what plane, what boat. I mean, there's always room for improvement, and it's a lot of it's got to do with, yes, performance and aesthetics. So the cool factor can always be risen on something.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So what do you?
So,
I mean, how you've been doing so this new bagger series type thing that you've been doing, like, what's the concept behind that? You've been doing like these what were they called? You calling them like race? What was it?
My GP bagger?
Yeah, your GP bagger. Like, so you've been like basically selling the baggers in a form that's like that, right? Or trying to sell them that way.
Yeah, I did them up that they're so astronomical. Everybody's like, how much? They just want to know. They can't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a thing for them, and it pisses people off when I don't tell them, because I don't need it getting out there on social media and being badmouthed, because that's how it is. That's
Yeah.
where, you know, guys will be like, oh yeah, MJK's ripping everybody off, and he's charging this, and that guy's crazy, and I don't need that. So, you know, there's some stuff that I make, like the swing arm, I'm not even selling,
Yeah.
because people get mad when I tell them what it costs, and I'm like, geez, but it took me 60 hours, and they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear how much, and it's like, well, can I tell you how long it took me to make, and then, you know, what the tools I had to buy, and they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear how much. So I'm like, you know, I'm not even gonna sell it. I'm not even gonna bother. I'll put it on full bike builds, and I'll put those front ends on it. I'll make it so expensive. That's my way of getting back, I guess, at that type of guy. I'll make it so expensive they can't afford it. And I'll sell it to the guys who can afford it. And the guys that are buying it, they're not Instagram savvy.
Yeah.
They got a hold of me through other sources. Like, I've sold those bikes, and I've never even spoke to the owner. I spoke to their handlers.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not the almighty buck, because if it was that sort of thing, you'd think I'd be posting it all the time. Like, look, I sold another one. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's I'm not into it. I don't care. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to make the badass parts that I make. Everybody's asking me for my brake levers, and, you know, it takes me 2 hours to make each lever with 11 parts that I got to make. And try and make that affordable. You can't. You know,
Yeah.
maybe China can, but then we all know what's going to happen with, you know, the quality of it.
Yeah.
They're not going to get the same piece. They just can't. They can't make it. You know, the same quality level. So, or that look or feel. So, I mean, it just can't be made. So I'm like, you know, there's some parts that I made, and you have to make them to figure out if you can make enough of them to make money at it, to make it feasible. And there's some parts that we make that just don't make sense. You know, that can't be obtained. And then there's which a lot of people think that's most of my parts, but it boils down to, well, apparently that's not true, because I can't keep them on the shelf. So,
Yeah.
you know, it boils down to, you know, how do you make it cheap enough so people can afford it? And some of the stuff you just can't. Like that swing arm's a perfect example.
Well-
I've only gotten a couple of them that I can put out there for it. and there has been a couple of people that's have phoned and said, I don't care what it costs, I just have to have it. And those are the guys that are buying some of my, the levers and the swing arm sort of situation deal.
Well, that kind of stuff that's what separates, and that's honestly like a legacy type thing you're building. You're not whoring yourself out with product to just sell it. You're making a high quality product that's probably going to be around longer than any scene that we're a part of. You know what I mean? And at some point in time, I can't, I'm 36 now. What if I'm 66 later on and I'm scrummaging through a fucking scrapyard and there's an MJK fucking bagger swing arm there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
The swap meet.
like in my day, this was $2,200 or $4,200 or some shit. Now it's like, so I mean, there's some coolness to that shit. But at the same time, like I was at my buddy's shop today, Adam Garley again, the guy that introduced me to you, and he's doing a West Coast chopper for a customer, and this customer is anal. He wants everything OG West Coast chopper, so he's like scouting out every piece that Jesse used to make back in the day, to the point where he told me that he had sent him a kickstand and it had the Iron Cross on it. But the Iron Cross on the kickstand had 2 outlines, and the original only had 1 outline. So the 2 outlines was a knockoff. He told him don't put it down on his bike. He found the original. There are people out there that want that brand, and I think that's what you're building, and it's just like a matter of being
that's
in
not a very good business thing.
Maybe not.
You're gonna go broke real fast.
Probably, but I think that. I mean, dude, if you're gonna go broke, you might as well be cool as fuck going broke, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the other stuff is maintaining quite well, so I'm okay with it.
And so you do full service and everything on bikes up there too, other than the machine.
No.
You don't? What else do y'all do in the shop?
There's other stuff that I do machining wise that support this motorcycle habit of mine.
That's good.
So. There's more to it than meets the eye with me. That's for sure. I don't want to get into it, but I mean,
that's cool.
I've been very fortunate that I've had companies such as Drag Specialties jump on board and want to support me by having my products in their catalog. And that's huge. That
was also really helpful too for being able to kind of soften that cross the border price. You know what I mean? So it makes it makes it a lot more feasible for us lower states down here to get kind of your products without spending the shipping charges and shit like that. So
and then some of the other guys who unfortunately for some of the other guys who work in dealers or motorcycle shops or whatever, obviously they get it for even less. Mm-hmm. But they help promote it, right? They're the ones who are putting it on their bikes, and I never expect anybody when they buy a part to like hashtag me or whatever. But when they do, I am so grateful.
Yeah.
Like I can't thank them enough. Like when they put it out there and say, it's a sense of, I guess, accomplishment on my behalf when they say they're happy that they got the part, and they're showing it off to their buddies. I mean. Nothing makes somebody feel better about themselves when they see something like that. It makes it worth a lot of this stuff that I do worthwhile. It sounds so cliche-ish too when I say it, but it's true. Like when you have a customer that's so proud and so happy to have that part, it makes my life so much happier.
Yeah, it's like. It really can put you on a high, of feeling like what you're doing makes sense and it's the right path.
Yeah, it's as long as the guys that I have to put it out there, but as long as those guys don't let it go to their head.
Yeah.
Like, God, I can't stress it enough. This ego stuff just drives me nuts.
Well, I don't know if I was rocking an MJK bagger swing arm on my bike, I'd probably be a fucking ego dick too. You know what I mean? Like, just.
Well, I mean. I don't know. I just can't do that. I'm the guy who wants to put the bike there and then I run away from the bike.
Yeah. Well, I remember last year, not this year at Sturgis, but last year you came to Sturgis, and that's when I was there on the Gold FXR, and we had just missed each other at the Big Wheel Bagger show because you pulled up and I saw you and I was across the parking lot, and then supposedly I guess somebody was like telling you couldn't park there or some shit because your shit wasn't.
What are you doing parking here? I said, I don't know. I thought it was a bike show. What size wheel is that? And I go, 19? You can't park here. I'm like, I don't know where to park, dude. I'm just parking, okay? I says, this isn't a big deal for me.
Yeah.
So he went and ran over. He told one of the officials, and the official comes over and he goes, you can't park here. And I'm like, okay, is there a reason? He says, well, you have to park back there where the 19-inch. Almost like you have to park where the low lifes are.
Yeah, I was back there.
And I'm like, I get it, but this isn't my thing.
That's what's wrong. That's honestly what's wrong with those shows. Like, we're getting back to that. It was is that you have a lot of people that aren't really connected to the many facets of motorcycling. So, they're looking at your bike, and this bike had a swing arm. You didn't have the new swing arm, but you had a swing arm on that bike, right? Last year?
On that one? No, I didn't. I just had a.
Because that's the year that famous picture of you like fucking like just damn near toe on the ground hitting the corner last year. Yeah. So that bike was all done. You had the full front end. I mean, and this was a year and a half ago now, to where these full front end baggers weren't really that popular at that point. And it's just like how nice
they were popular.
Oh, they were.
Guys were doing them. Yeah. Like guys, like I gotta give credit to some guys. Like Sacha's been out with this stuff like Kraus. He's been out this stuff for a while, and then Big Bear came on, and then I was actually third. Mm-hmm. Like if we're going into pecking order sort of thing as far as who's doing the performance bagger thing. Now, not to discredit anybody else who's doing it that hasn't got the social media recognition. So I got to put that out there. Like there's other guys that might be doing this that I just don't know.
Yeah.
And not to disrespect them whatsoever, but I just seen something in the industry that I thought I can contribute to.
Yeah.
Not take away from. So I kind of went there, and it started like we're kind of going backwards here, but I got the Dyna first, and then I got the bagger. So I had them both at my old shop. And I looked at the Dyna, and I seen all these guys, doing wheelies and doing whatever on them, and I thought, this is a cool bike.
Yeah.
I'm going to start doing stuff for them. And then it only took me 3 months before, I had, people screaming at me on social media and telling me that I shouldn't make parts for them. Who do I think I am? And I'm like, this is I don't. This isn't fun. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I literally dropped out of it. And then, I had a bagger. I looked at it in the corner of my eye and I went, okay, well, I guess I'll go over here then. and that's literally how it happened. Mm-hmm. There was no rhyme or reason. It just was like, okay, well, I know I want to do something similar to the bagger, so some things happen for a reason. It was a good thing. There's certain shops that, threaten me and tell me that, how dare I?
Yeah.
They pushed me over to the bagger. So, I went there and I went hard that direction, In the beginning, I was like, I'll make valve covers and I'll make trinkets and this and that. And then I looked at it and went, what would happen if I went like kind of nuts on this thing and had some fun with it? So that's what happened. I seen, guys putting front ends on it, and I'm like, well, if you're going to play the one-up game, I mean, let's go here.
It does feel really awesome though when you lighten those bikes up. When you start putting, kind of shaving a little bit of weight, just especially T-bars. There's really not a lot of great mid controls out there, which I would be like inclined to go to a mid control setup over my Fords or the floorboards on the bagger, because I got that new 19, and
okay, right on.
And I bought a 17 at the end of last year, and I was going to keep it, and then it just sold really quick, so I was like, fuck it, whatever. But this 19, I got a lot of trips planned next year, so I'm sticking with this bike, and I'm just trying to think of ways that to make this thing, cool and fun, but not like overbearing with paint. I want to keep it real subtle and clean and kind of classy looking, but ride the fuck out of it.
Mid controls are tough because, I mean, Kevin's the only guy I think who's making them. And then I think there's one other guy, but if I'm going to go at it, I'm looking at it going, same thing. Like, I have an issue with doing things like, that's just okay.
Average.
Yeah. You know, I kind of want to go so far above that it hurts me in the end. That's the only issue I have. So, you know, that's why I did the floorboard the way I did it. And because I looked at it like, okay, center gravity's got to change. You got to put your feet underneath you. You need more control to counter steer, to lean off the bike, like the sport bike thing where I was kind of like, I did so many years professionally. So that's why I did the running board the way I did it. So you can put your feet underneath of it and not have to go through the burden of it. Like, if you think my running board's expensive, can you imagine me making a set of big controls?
So your running board actually pulls the pegs back for there, or what is it they're doing?
Well, what it is, if you look at that photo of me leaned over with my running shoe, I use that as a curb feeler, by the way. I don't want to scratch my running boards or anything on my bike, so I lean my toe off the edge, and when my runner touches, and you can feel it touch, it doesn't rip your foot off or anything ridiculous. If you're a decent rider, you can feel it just starting to get there. There's a sense.
Yeah.
And you know how far you go. So basically, if you look at that photo, they're like mid controls. My foot is directly underneath my ass. And that's how you get control of your bike, because you're dramatically changing the center of gravity. And when you have to do that, and you take the weight off of your ass and you put it into your legs. And when you do that, you're controlling the bike more by steering input from your legs. You can't steer a bike with your ass.
Yeah, I've realized that just in recently starting to ride more aggressively, because my choice of friends have pushing me beyond my limits. But
isn't it awesome?
A lot of people.
I like those guys.
Yeah, a lot of people are, like, I know a lot of people that are tall that have forward controls, and I tell them, like, look, if you go to mid controls, you're going to gain more feel and control of your bike. It's not just
absolutely.
It's not just your feet are closer to you. Like, you're going to enjoy it. Now, if you like to travel like I do, then dude, you run a crash bar. I'm against them, but they're whatever. You like crash bars, cool. Put your feet up there. Put some highway pegs on there. But I feel like the mid control, even riding, is still one of the most comfortable places to put your feet.
I like to move my feet around, because from the practical side of things, you look at it, it's a touring bike. So do you really want to limit yourself to just having one foot position?
Yeah.
I'd rather have a running board that is like a mid control, but you can throw your feet around anytime you want, when you want. So that's my whole thought process on it. And it's hard to relay that, in looking at a picture of a part.
Yeah.
So, I've done it several times, but I don't want to come off seeming like a guru or I've written stories on my Instagram page saying, like, if you change your center of gravity and you put your foot here, and then you change your location of your arms and you put input there, I mean, the bike will turn quicker, it'll handle better, it won't wobble, it won't do, and it just turns into a golf show.
So
then you get like 600 direct messages asking all sorts of crazy questions that I can't answer.
Going back to what you talked about earlier about the trees that you developed, is this something you're planning on putting out on the market for, like a stock front end, or is this something you're only doing for the inverted style front ends?
It is. No, I got it on stock front ends right now, but I can tell everybody it doesn't matter. Like, they get upset, but it's $2,500 for that complete setup.
Yeah.
And you can't run your stock gauges. You already have to have your gauges relocated. I mean, it gets expensive real quick, but I'll put money on it. Like, I challenge anybody on that when you put that triple clamp assembly on a stock front end, and you have to run cartridges, though, and I'm not boasting for them, but we run the Legends stuff all the time. So we'll put a set of Legends cartridges in the front, a set of 13-inch on the rear with my triple clamps, and like, the bike's not even the same bike. It even feels lighter, just literally picking the bike up. I mean, I sound like some sort of salesman on this, but I mean, I hate sounding like that, but I mean, it's tough. I wish I had somebody the problem with nowadays, hence social media again, if you were to sell somebody that front end and they're boasting about it like, oh, this thing's crazy, like it's not even the same bike, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just sounds like they're trying to sell my product, and like it sounds like another guy getting something for free on social media and pushing it. Like, how do you take that for face value now?
Well, I mean, I think that like what we do now, I mean, you of course you have a lot of people that, you know, you give them an exhaust and it's the best exhaust in the world, but you know,
Yeah.
it's when you have companies like our podcast or things like that aren't in bed with anybody to where they have to say this shit's good. You're like, hey, dude,
Yeah.
you know, I love the company and I love the way it looks, but it did not make power. Sorry, you know,
Yeah.
or you just gotta you gotta sift through the people you feel may be genuine or disgenuine, and then you just got to make the decision yourself. There's plenty of information on everything out there, but the thing that I like what you're saying is that it's proven that you ride them. You have a background in it, and
Yeah.
you know, and I know a lot of people want that. They want to ride these bikes aggressively because it makes them feel like they can do everything with this bike. Fuck, man, I can jump on that bike and go hit these canyons, and I could throw a tour pack on it or a sissy bar and go across country.
Exactly.
You know?
That's
And-
why I love them so much.
And that's why I love them. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing to promote is the way to enjoy the bike and the things that you spend your money on. And that's why, like, I wanted to have a guy like you on that's making high quality parts to make the experience of owning a bagger more enjoyable. You know?
Yeah. It's more well-rounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to take away, you only want to add. So there's a lot of things out there that you lose certain things, like horsepower is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
So everybody wants more horsepower, but the more power you get, the less reliable it is. Doesn't matter what that guy says. I mean, the chain of command down the road is going to take over. Okay, you got way more power, but now you got to do the clutch. Now you got to do all the transmission stuff. Now you got to do a chain drive. Now you got to do. I mean, it just keeps going. And where do you stop, right? So I make certain things there that seem like they're expensive, but when you bolt them on, you forget about that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like real quick. Like I've had the guys that put them on so far, I've had to call because they're not going to put it out there on social media or whatever. Some of these guys don't even have an Instagram account. They got it by word of mouth, and you know they called it, and I had to call them back. And said, "So what do you think?" And they totally freak out on the situation. Like, Jesus, how do you do that? Or it's not even the same bike. It's just, it in the parking lot. It's not even the same. It's extremely stable. It does. I mean, it sounds like a salesman, but I don't know how else to put it out there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't want to just hand it to somebody and have them boast about it and then nobody believe them. So, you know, it's a tough thing to do. Like, there's guys out there who give tons of stuff away, but my shit costs so much to make, it's hard to give away. It's like, it hurts. It's a pocketbook big time. It's like, oh, okay, can I afford to do this? And I'm not rolling in dough, dude. You know what my daily driver is? It's a 2002 Honda Accord with rusted out quarter panels. Like,
that's balling.
I don't have a pimp ass ride. I got my 1-ton dually, and I treat that like, you know, it's my holy grail sports car, and I cherish that thing. And it's a 2013. It's not a brand new dually. You know, like, the stuff I have, I cherish when it's mine, and you know, my poor Honda is my daily driver.
Mm-hmm.
I can't afford to have a pimp ass car, you know, or I sink every cent I got back into this company, you know, and it's the way it's got to be if you want to progress and move forward and do these sort of things. So, and once again, like, I bought my Ultra. And I thought, you know, I'm going to pimp this thing out a little bit. I'm going to make it, you know, handle a little better and do all these cool things. And then I finished it. I'm like, God damn, I'm so freaking broke.
Yeah.
I got to sell it now. So it sucks. You know, I got the GP Glide, but I have to have it for development.
Yeah.
You know, I had it up for sale, and I was just going to buy a 19 and move on. But what does a 19 give me? A different dash. So, you know, they do have bigger cubic inches, which is nice. But, you know, that's another thing we're bringing on now. I mentioned that, like, the horsepower. So we're developing, you know, these other parts. And I don't want to. I had to deal with somebody else on an engine deal, but we couldn't make it happen. He couldn't get stuff done in time, and I didn't want to, do the commitment of coming all the way out there. And I mean, he was going to give it to me for free, and I was extremely grateful. So, it really sucks that I'm doing my own engine deal now, and it's going to, I got to tell, I'm going to call him and tell him, look, this isn't to, undermine you or take business away, because that's not my goal here. It's just because I'm doing it because I can.
Yeah.
And I want to push myself as an individual further on what I'm doing. So there's nothing cooler than doing what I'm doing now and then dipping into the engine side. And I know there's lots of guys that are doing it now that don't have social media accounts. I keep hitting that because there's so many other guys out there. Like, if you can support your local guy, support him.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing. Like, if you're a Sasha fan, if you're a Kraus fan, stay with Kraus.
Yeah.
If you're a Big Bear fan, stay with Big Bear. Don't be wishy-washy. Like, if you're an MJK fan, then stay with MJK. Like, work with those guys. They'll do whatever to help you out, or if they don't, then that's where you can make your decision to move on.
Yeah.
But support your guy that you're around. There's nothing wrong with competition. There's nothing wrong with other people buying other things. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't take that as like, well, why didn't you buy MJK? Well, he didn't buy it because it was either A, too expensive, or he didn't like it and he wanted to try that. Like, it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. And it just makes for better business all the way around. So going back to the engine thing, I'm doing this engine thing because I can and I want to. It's not to steal customers away from anybody, because that's not my goal and that's not where I'm going. I'm not price pointing anything. I'm not trying to be better. I'm just trying to do what I want to do the way I want to do it. So, I guess that's my big message right there with all my parts. It boils down to that.
You shouldn't have to apologize either for being innovative and being creative and pushing the bar. Like, that's something that is like, hey, if you're making a product that's better or whatever, and from the outside looking in, I've had some of your products, and I know my buddy Mark at Texas Performance has ran some of your stuff on his FXR. It's high quality, so there's no denying that. So the thing is that, I wouldn't apologize. I'm like, hey man, this is a free market, and you guys either need to step your game up or you're going to get stepped over. That's just the way the shit works,
Well, yeah,
I'll say it. You don't have to.
I don't want to be that guy, I see it too much in this industry, and I don't want to be another statistic in the industry of that guy, and there's so many of them. So if like I said, if I can put it out there and say, like, there's, of course I want the business, I want people to come to me, but at the same time, there's other guys out there. There's nothing wrong with trying it. Mm-hmm. And do your homework. There's nothing wrong. Do your homework with people. Don't just buy it because it looks cool or you think it's cool. Do the homework. Like, does it have a purpose? And what is the purpose? And is it going to work? And, I tell people all the time, I tell my guys that works on my social media stuff, if they start asking a lot of questions, just tell them to call me, because it's easier for me to explain what's going to happen if you buy the part or why I designed it that way, rather than say it's, it handles better, it does this, but, well, how does it do that? And it's easier for me to explain it on the phone than it is to write like a book about it.
Yeah.
Because some of this stuff is extremely technical, and sometimes I have to put it in terms that they understand, because if I put it in my terms or an engineering term, they're not going to understand. So you have to explain it to them a certain way, so it makes it easier for them to understand. Not saying that they don't, they're too dumb, they don't know what's going on. It's just that then it opens their eyes. Mm-hmm. Then they go, okay, this makes sense now. So, I'm ventured into that side, that mechanical side of things, where I'm making stuff that makes such a difference, but it's for a reason, and it's hard for them to justify the cost or understand why it's being done until they use it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what it boils down to with everything on that I'm making right now.
That's good.
So, yeah, I mean, having said, one of the guys came up to me, it'd be really cool, but it never happened. I can't make it happen. But I would love to have like some sort of goofball race series with baggers.
That'd be cool.
That
I mean,
would be so fun. Can you imagine?
We just like a track, like real turns.
Yeah, like
shit?
a road course, like road racing. You know,
dude, I've noticed there's a lot of people doing it on Dynas now out there on the West Coast and stuff.
I see that, and I love it. I love seeing that stuff out there because you're taking something, you're defying the laws of physics. You know, you really are, and that's what makes it really fun. Anybody can jump on a brand new R1 with all the electronics and the type of tire and the suspension it comes with and ride that thing and go fast.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a special type of somebody to throw a leg over, a 750-pound or 900-pound motorcycle and try and throw it around. There's something to be said about that. That's a lot of fun.
It's like back in the day, I'd go to a track, and then you'd see a Busa out there, like a Hayabusa out there on the track. Like, what is this dude out here doing, But
there was a guy in AMA who did it.
Yeah.
He did it for a while. There was only one Hayabusa out there in AMA, and it was such a fan favorite, right? Because it was such an underdog. It's like, what's this guy doing? We all know this bike isn't fast on a racetrack, so why are you doing it? But you have to watch. So, to have a bagger set up like that, where it'd be great because you would have Indian, and you can have a road glide, a street glide, a road king. You can have all these different style of big, heavy boats out there and battling it out. That'd be so much fun.
It's more entertaining in my opinion because then it becomes more of a question of skill for the rider and things like that, and not so much.
I think so. It's it boils down to who wants to crash their bike.
Who's going to push it over the edge.
Yeah, who's willing to throw it on the ground. So, to try and get that infamous win, so that gets you absolutely nothing.
Yeah, like I said, man, I feel like the horizons of the Harley Davidson, even Indian for that matter, the things that people are trying to do now and broaden, I guess, the horizons of everything is growing. It's like
it is.
20 years ago, like the idea was just to get a nice bike and go to a rally. That was the epicenter of everything going on. And now you have all these subcultures, and these subcultures are creating, they're taking these bikes down dirt, paths. They're doing, all these different types of racing. You got these guys carving canyons, and I mean, it's just growing is what it is. And it's, I think it's harder for a lot of the older cats to accept, or not in a bad way, but just like fuck, man, I'm I've been having a business for 20, 30, 40 years, man. I'm not trying to reinvent myself, and I'm not trying to kill myself around a track. I just want to do nice work and blah, blah, blah. But then you got these young, hungry people that are out there, pushing the boundaries, and it's changing our industry. And and I think that the only downside to the whole idea of changing is that it changes again quickly. So by the time people start getting ready and getting settled in, like, this is what I want to do, you see people doing something else that looks funner or is more popular, or whatever is your connection to it,
Yeah, so, the squirrel effect.
Yeah, squirrel.
Right away, it's like, well, wait, that's shinier, cooler. I want that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
it is.
I'm trying to, like, myself, I'm trying to dilute that feeling of feeling like I need to do the things that are popular and just do the things that I want to do. You know what I mean? Instead of putting so much pressure on myself to keep up with the Joneses, I guess is the word too. So like I was pushing myself so hard because I wanted to finally do a shovel head, and I wanted to kind of have a performance vibe to it, even though it makes even worse sense than a hardtail performance shovel head. Makes less sense than a bagger.
That.
Yeah. But
that Bonneville bike I posted pictures of.
But it's just fun, man. I just want to do it, and I think that I'm at a point now where I'm like, fuck, man, like it might not be popular once I finally do it, but I'm finally gonna do it, and I'm gonna feel cool as shit doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it helps you realize other things. So there's life experiences to that. So I mean, I didn't one day decide to build bikes. I mean, I guess I did bodywork paint. I did bodywork and paint. I worked in a paint shop for a while. I hated it. Nobody wants to sand a car all day.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Sorry, guys.
Especially when you're younger. I mean, you want to go out and party, you want to do things, you want, to have a cool car and go fast. You don't want to sit there and stand and paint all day. So anyways, I did it to discipline myself to know what it takes to do it when I want to do my own, because I couldn't afford it. Same with fixing the bike, same with building bikes, same with cars, same with boats when I was into boats for a little bit, drag racing. All these life experiences through the last, 30 some odd years, I'm not young. You take that with you and apply it in different areas. So anytime you can go and hand build something or do something, it's such a learning curve and a learning experience. It only helps you with anything else you tend to tackle. You're going to take that form and use it somewhere along the line, if you're staying in motorsports, that is.
Yeah.
So, the discipline of doing it is the biggest thing. Have to do it, to bring yourself to do it, or to bring yourself to say, "Oh, that's not good enough. I want a little bit better." So it takes longer, and there's going to be times you're going to be building a bike, and you might build that part 3 different times because each time you do it, it's not good enough or it didn't look the way it was supposed to. So, but you have to take that as part of the fun of creating.
Yeah.
That's the creating side of things. It's the same with paint. You can't tell me you haven't laid down stripe and then, or tape and then go, you take it all back off.
Yeah, exactly. All the time.
And go, God damn it. It's a learning curve, and that's the exact same thing. Doesn't matter what you get into with the metal, building tank fender, mounting an engine tabs, building an exhaust system. I mean, it all boils down to that. That one lowrider I did a panhead lowrider bike, and I did the exhaust system 3 times before I was happy. And each day, it took a day to do the exhaust. Now, how much do I suck as a fabricator if it took me 3 days? It's not that. It's just the tabs, the location, the building, the heat shields, and blah, blah. I mean, it just took that long. And then you stand back and look at it and go, it's just not doing it for me.
Yeah. I know that feeling. Yeah.
It drives you nuts.
It's like, when you have a vision in your head and, sometimes the first couple of tries to put it in reality doesn't quite, translate very well. But, once you finally do, man, it's like I said, another Cloud9 experience. Like, fuck, that's better than I thought. It's like it flows in so many ways, and that's what makes it. It's a challenge, man. It's just the small little, like overcoming small obstacles in the day to day that makes sometimes the jobs that we have more entertaining than, not to talk shit, but just an office job somewhere, where there's no creativity.
A lot of the things that have happened over the years of building bikes, painting or whatever, sometimes mistakes make for the coolest outcomes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times where I made a mistake and go, but if I add to it, it'll look cool.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that happening. You just got to keep plowing through it. It's sometimes can be painful, but if you do it,
it'll pass.
It passes real quick. It really does.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, when I teach people certain processes of painting bikes, like the buffing, polishing, it's the suckiest part, right? But I don't know if my analogy is really great when I put it out there for the world, but basically I always say, like, look, this process is like sitting in jail. No matter what you do, you're still going to be sitting in jail until your time is done. So no matter how much whining, complaining, trying to think about other shit, you have to put in the time to do the job correctly. So just get in your mind that you're going to be here for the next 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours, and nothing you do is going to make it faster. So just do your job correctly, That way you don't have to do more time tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as soon as you try and rush, especially paint's like, as soon as you try and rush paint, the first thing that happens is your mistake can turn into like compound immensely. Mm-hmm. That's what I noticed in paint. You hurry paint, the results are never going to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is like, you know, there's obviously ways you can do things quicker and get, you know, out better, but realistically, it all really hurts the final outcome. It's like the longer you take, the more preparation, the dry times, all that stuff. When you let everything sit in gel per se, put in its time, the end product is so much more nicer. It's just, you know, some of us don't have the luxury. I know some of us are painting, you know, we're starting on a bike Monday and Friday's rent and it's got to be done, and I get it, but you know, don't want to spend your whole life doing those type of bikes because you'll never get out of it. But you know, you find you might have to do that crackhead shit for a while, but try to get out of it, try to get more responsible, try to give yourself the time to do the quality of work that you want to be known for. You know, there's nothing worse than listening to someone talk shit about quality when, you know, they aren't on a level.
There's always going to be guys like that out there, though. You can't help it nowadays. Before, if they talk shit, it's because they had it on their bike and they said something about it to somebody. But nowadays, it gets blown out of proportion.
It does.
It's sad. That's the way it is, and I just deal with it.
So you got any?
I guess.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said how I deal with it is I just try and outdo myself all the time.
Yeah, be your worst critic, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. Don't settle.
That's what it boils down to. Like right now, even with our paint, like I've been solid doing this whole panel thing for about 2 years now, and I'm not over it, but I'm over it. You know, like I want to evolve it somehow, and so I'm in a creative. I'm trying to put myself in a creative process as we speak that I can not completely reinvent myself, but I can add new elements to my style that not just to set me apart from other people, but to remotivate me to be as like interested as I was 2 years ago when I started doing panels. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a constant.
You get in a rut.
Yeah, a rut. Yeah, exactly. So I know that I can put out, not being arrogant, I know I can put out work that's going to be pleasing to the customer and most of the people that look at it. But like, there's a different feeling when you're putting out work that you're legit proud of. Like you're legit like, fuck man, like customers might not see it the way I'm seeing it, but I'm like stoked that this is something that I did with my hands now. So that's what I'm chasing mostly, is I'm looking like I'll get in a spot where, okay, this is evolving and it's becoming something that I really like the way it's coming. And then you kind of peak, I guess you'd say. And then you kind of look for that new, you know, thing to like evolve in. Yeah, a new high basically. Yeah. You're always searching. That's what makes you a better craftsman. Is if you're never satisfied and you're searching, you get complacent and then things turn to shit and then you quit. Yeah. And you don't want to do that. You'd rather rise above it and just keep moving on. And you look for inspiration. I look for so many different areas for inspiration. Like I was looking at boats last night, like high-end luxury yacht boats. I was looking at boats last night for inspiration. Yeah. For colors, inspiration. But at that. And I found this one really nice one because I'm doing a brown Lowrider S for my friend. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, a root beer brown. How do I make this different? And I saw this like speedboat like yacht thing on Pinterest last night. It was like flat, super dark gray, but it had like all wood paneling in the boat. And then it had like bright yellow accents throughout the whole boat. And I was like, fuck, that's beautiful. I could see this paint job. Yeah, the contrast was there. The most loudest color was the least color, you know? So it just looked very classy, right? And do you know who's really good at crazy contrast? He has a certain style, and you can always tell his style, too. I mean, now that we're talking about paint here, Hot Dog, the way he does stuff? Yeah, for sure. That guy's got some crazy stuff going on. That dude's, he's an OG in it, man. He's been doing this stuff for so long that his bag of tricks is, you know, I'd love to peek in there and see what he's got sometimes. It's fucking deep. Like, that guy knows so much. So, I mean, that's just one guy. There's a lot of guys out there that can do stuff. Those guys that are doing lowrider paint stuff, I mean, some people say that's played out, but I mean... I don't... It's not, man. It's just... You know, the
I
thing
don't
is
think
that,
it is.
like, the crazy thing is, like, you get people in California that may have been doing dynos and FXRs for 6 or 7 years, and they're like, oh, that shit was 6 years ago. I'm like, well, the rest of the country's hot on that shit, and there's still people in your neck of the woods too that is, you know, reaching out and wanting these paint jobs. So it's still hot. Just because you're over it doesn't mean that it ain't popular anymore. You know,
That's
and
right.
like the other thing, like paint wise, that I've been like really diving into is I feel stupid for even saying this, but there's a whole nother spectrum or style of paint that is like the race car helmet paint culture.
Yes.
And I'm
Like,
so fascinated with it right now. Like, I literally just screenshotted like 400 helmets last night that I was like, fuck, that's, you know, because I'm like big into helmets now. And I'm like, I don't want to copy that, but like, I want to merge the two in a sense, you know?
Yeah.
Like the panel flake, you know, old school with this like very, you know, graffiti-esque like pointed race look, you know? Because the color combinations are so wild they use on these helmets that, you know, theoretically they wouldn't go together in a paint job, but they somehow work. And that's the same way with graffiti. Like, you'll see a badass graffiti piece and I'm like, whoa, I didn't think orange would be in that fucking picture, but that ties it together, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in a rabbit hole last night.
Yeah, you can get, like, it's, that stems back, to me, as soon as you say stuff like that, that's like 90s drag racing.
Yeah.
Paint jobs on top fuel cars and whatnot, or comp limited cars. I mean, all drag racing. Back then, the crazy colors they have, they still have it today. I shouldn't say that because they still have that shit today.
There's a resurgence going on of that as well as we speak. People are kind of going back to that like late 80s, early 90s kind of, you know, kind of out of the Miami Vice era into the, you know, the 21 Jump Street era, you know what I mean? So it's like a little grunge.
Scallops going on, and but they're curved a little more now, and
not so many like beams.
Yeah.
Dude,
So
you gotta admit the 80s are like the worst take at the future ever in human history. It's like they jumped so far ahead, like with just like trying to make things technological and like look like it's futuristic, and they just failed in every way possible.
Yeah, like
there's like two cool cars from the 80s. It's like a Grand National, and I don't know. I don't even know another one, to be honest with you. A C10, maybe a truck or something. I don't know. But
the 80s weren't kind to anything.
No.
They're trying to morph into all sorts of different things.
But, you know, it's funny how it all works out. I mean, there's a lot of, like, culturalistically, as far as, like, you know, fashion and styles for, like, even logos. It's like the 80s seems to be a very popular, you know, reboot, I guess you'd say, for, like, color combinations and styles of logos. And,
it brings you back to certain eras.
It does, yeah.
Colors and fonts and styles put you in an era. And it's amazing you can mix the two. Like you look at something, you like, you know, I remember that being on like a 1970 something or whatever, but now it's on a 2019.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's lots of that. That's why I'm going to SEMA too, is to get that vibe, to get that creative side of me going, and try and think, I guess not kooky like. Out of the box, but definitely get out of the box that I'm in right now even, and try to push it a little further as far as a boundary is concerned. So I might see something there and I'll be like, you know, if I built a part that had that vibe right there, not copying it, but because you can't, it's on a car, but you know, and put that over here, I wonder if it would look, I wonder if it would take, I wonder if I would like it. So visually, I think guys like you and me, I think we can visually see it before it happens.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can paint the way you paint. You can't just throw lines down because you've visually already seen what you're doing. I mean, that's my take on a lot of painters that are, you know, gifted or have that certain style. So, I mean, I have that visual cue where I can look at something, I look at a bike and picture a part on it and go, man, that looked dope. I think I'm going to do that. And then you just go ahead and make it. So, you know, I'm going to the SEMA thing to look at many variations of certain things, and I'm looking at everything there and taking it all in. So that's why I go do things like, when you go to the bike show, you're just seeing bikes.
Yeah.
I like going to airport museums, even looking at landing gear.
Mm.
Try that for once, just for size. Like, go look at it, just a simple, landing gear in a fighter plane. Look at all the componentries and pieces on that, how it's put together. It's mind-bending.
Yeah.
To me, it does anyways. That creates a certain, that wakens something up in my brain where it goes, holy crap, this is cool, I can use that. So there's so many different aspects you can take away from so many different things. So
Yeah, you can find inspiration in a lot of areas, yeah.
Totally. And if you get too narrow-minded or too egotistical, it'll block all that. And then you wind up where...
Yeah, you can find yourself being very complacent and then very confrontational to any kind of change or any kind of pressure to do a better job. You know what I mean? So I get it. Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to go there. Like I think I probably went to SEMA last year with the wrong mindset, but it's just like I said, I am a hardcore bike guy, and the car culture is cool, but it's I guess maybe I'm just a hater because I wish that our motorcycle culture had those kind of numbers to where we could have shit like that, because the AIM Expo, from what I was told, wasn't as vast and it wasn't as participated amongst motorcycle manufacturers as they were hoping, and they're trying to turn AIM into what SEMA is for motorcycles, which it just seems like they've had a hard time to pull it off, to get that kind of commitment and people to build for these things. And the motorcycle industry doesn't quite have the money that the car industry does, so rightfully so.
No. The numbers aren't there, so I mean that's why I'm doing exactly what I'm doing. It's something like that, because there's such a gap there, it seems. It's a void.
Building the type of bikes that you're building and being the one to create these type of parts that have been overlooked, I think can also inspire people from outside our Harley culture to come into it, because a guy that's been racing MotoGP his whole life, or just been on the circuit, whether it's just some regular AMA racing, he's going to appeal to that glide more than anything. It's like, oh shit, like I can sit up straight and be comfortable, but still rip around the corners. Fuck yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of that right now. A lot of the guys I speak to are like that. They're like, oh, I used to road race and I seen this, and it's super cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm that very same guy, so I go to all sorts of events that have, I don't mention them or anything, but I mean, like, SEMA's pretty big, and I'm really going with open eyes and really going with, a frame of mind that, everything can be used, everything's obtainable. So hopefully I don't see something that's catches my eye so much that I want to move in that direction. That's always that's a squirrel thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to see but I mean the car thing is once again, it's saturated, but it's over the last 10 years the same thing. It's been rejuvenated to more of a high technical way.
Yeah.
The old Blade Connington hot rods are gone now, and there's a lot more high tech that's going into these things. But having said that, the expense on some of those things is once
crazy.
Again, it's way up there.
Yeah, I went down a C10, like a 60s C10 rabbit hole about 2014, and I realized that I became I don't know how to do things like moderately, so I was totally immersed in it. Every dollar I was spending, and I was only looking at C10s, and I was like, okay, well now my passion is these trucks, but I don't want to build them. My bike. So I saw my attention getting pulled away from, what I do customizing bikes and whatnot. And I realized, okay, I don't have the ability to separate. So I need to stick with the things that I, have or whatever. I'd love to have an old school truck, man, but I know how I am. Next thing you know, I'm organizing truck rides and meets and camp outs and other crazy shit. And then all of a sudden bikes are on the back burner, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, because bikes are my life for the most part. Yeah, same. I don't think I'll ever lose it, so that's not really it for me. Like, I'm a gearhead by, like I said,
through and through. But obviously the bikes are pretty huge in my life, and that's I mean, they're not going to go anywhere. But I mean, I definitely like venturing off and going in different directions for fun. It never lasts. I always have something going on the side, it seems. Like I've had so many different little, like I had that van for a while, then I had like, so many vehicles. So I mean, I did that ice cream truck style van.
Yeah. That thing was cool. You sold that thing cheap as hell too. Or you had it up for sale pretty cheap.
Yeah, I did, but then, I got nothing but like, you're crazy. So anyways, it's gone. And now I'm kind of feeling the need to want to fill a little bit of a creativity void here. So it's going to be dangerous for me going to SEMA. I might see something that I want to recreate or do. So, but it's definitely not going to take away from the bike. It's going to add, if anything, the way I look at it.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, totally. So, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of untapped stuff that I want to go into. It's just not enough time in a day.
Yeah, that is it.
The machines can only move so fast, and I only got 3 of them.
Dude,
So,
I'm not. I feel old, but my friends tell me I'm not as old as I act. But I feel the energy that I have to, like, I used to be able to stay in the shop till 4 a.m. every night, wake up at 8, 9 o'clock, be back at the shop, do it again. And I just don't have the energy for that anymore. Like I'm there for 8 or 9 or 10 hours tops. Like sometimes that's even hard to pull off, and I'm just drained, and I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? So I'm like worried about my energy level, because like in my head I still feel like I'm 21 years old and I can run all night, but it's starting to kind of linger off there. Mine,
I don't know. Mine hasn't really. Phil and I have been here sometimes doing that till 4 a.m. or haven't gone home sometimes. So we get excited over a certain part or a certain thing, And it always seems to be the most expensive part, though, the complicated piece. So, i.e., we went through several different designs of levers. We went through several different designs of swing arms before it stuck. Things like that. We stayed up, and those are fairly recent that we stayed up to the wee hours of the morning doing those, because we just couldn't leave it alone. I couldn't think. I had to finish it. I had to I
get that.
Get it there and then look at it and go, no, we got to change it, and then move on or whatever. So I'm still very much at that where I can put in the hours. But yours is a little bit different. When you get into wet sanding and have to focus the way you do, you have to be so focused when you're wet sanding. You got to be so careful. Polishing. I mean, it's very tedious. There's a lot going on there mentally, the way I see it, because I've done it. So, when you're creating something on a computer and designing it and moving it around, and you go through several phases of it, in each phase until you find the right one, and then you can relax a little bit. Then the next high comes along, and you have to machine it now. And then you stay up till wee hours in the morning doing that until it's done. And then it's on to the next one. So,
I found myself going into work, knocking out a good portion of work and being proud of that, coming home, and I usually try to sketch some ideas for some upcoming projects or something. It's hard. Sometimes the ideas stick. Sometimes it's just a bunch of watered up paper. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to go watch a movie or talk to my wife, hang out, do something. And then I go lay in bed, and then bam, fucking ideas just everywhere. And I'm like, shit. And then I'm laying there till 2 a.m. thinking about like color combinations and different things you can put inside graphics to give it a different, vibe and feel. It's just, it never ends. It's always like at the most time when I don't need it to be going on,
Yeah, like that's, try and get out of that. Try and get out of your comfort zone and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go in a complete opposite direction. Don't even let anybody know you're doing it. Just do it to see what it brings out in you.
Good idea.
I do stuff like that. I go in the complete opposite direction. I'm going to try this, and until something sticks or something gives you that feel of like excitement again, and where you're satisfied. So that's once again, that's why I'm running away, going to Vegas here, so I can see that side and get out of my comfort zone and see what it brings out in me. So I think
good.
I got friends like that do that. I'm going to bring his name up because he's a good friend of mine, Locke Baker. Do you know who he is?
No, what's he?
You got to look that guy up.
Locke?
He went to the Hot Bike Show. He took Modus engine, which is a V4,
Mm-hmm.
and he built a frame around it. It's a
I think
car
I know
motor,
who you're talking about.
basically.
Yeah, I think I know about. I think my friend Rusty from D&D was telling me about this guy. He built like every aspect of the bike and around the motor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I put it on my social media. I feed off of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take every aspect of it and I harness it. So you try and do that. Like I do it all the time, and I learned that kind of from him almost. When I met him for the very first time in Sturgis, I had a gas tank I built out of copper,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sitting on the shelf for almost 2 years because I was afraid to use it because it looked so goofy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met this guy called Locke Baker, and I seen some of the shit he was doing. It was so weird. It's so outside of the box and so goofy. And you either loved it and ran towards it, or you looked at it and thought, that's dumb. Why do you do that? and that's instantly sparked where my so-called bike career sort of took off, because I stopped right then and there. I never bought another frame after that. I built my own gas tanks. I started doing everything from that point on, because I was too busy trying to build to conform instead of conforming to myself. So that's how I got into the chopper side of things, and I give him credit for that. There's guys like Max Hayes that are doing stuff that's like crazy and inventive. I mean, I feed off of those guys. There's guys that are machining. Boyd is machining. There's all sorts of guys out there that you should feed off of, and not, you don't have to get to know them, but appreciate what they do, and then try and take little bits from everything and create your own vibe.
Yeah.
So
what?
but definitely go outside of your comfort zone. Go somewhere completely off the deep end.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because it definitely brings you back to a different area that you'd be happy with.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Works
sometimes
for
you
me.
got to shoot 3-pointers, and I think that's what it is just taking the harder shots of finding yourself, I guess, or finding out your position in it. And, sometimes you miss and sometimes you make, but, if you ain't taking any shots, But, so what are some, like, things that, you guys got planning for next year? Like any major events, any kind of products that you can talk about, or?
The events, I don't think I got anything. I posted several times. I'm not big on events because that number one, they're extremely costly, and number two, if I go to an event, I want to make sure that I go there and a lot of my friends are there.
Yeah.
Because then it's fun. And if you're going there for competition, or if you're going there for alternative measures, then it's not fun. I only want to do stuff if it's like that's just it. 100% fun. I'll never set up a trailer with a booth and push product, or I'm just not into it. That's not me. If I'm going to go somewhere with a bike, like I said, I'll park the bike and I'll run away from it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be near it. I just let the people enjoy see what they like, or who knows what they're going to take away from it. But I really don't want to sit there and explain things or get into it. I don't know why.
I get it, man.
It's odd. I'm kind of shy that way. I don't like boasting. I don't like putting it out there like that.
Well, it's the same thing with painters, man, because as soon as it's a crazy custom painted bike and you get off, the first question is, who painted that? And I used to do this to my friends all the time when they would be riding with me. I'd be like, that guy painted it over there. Because the next slew of questions were, hey, man, could you think you could paint my Cadillac? Or it's a 94, I want to sell it, so I don't want to put a lot of money in it. And it's just like you get the wildest amount of, like, stories that you're, like, forced to listen to, or you're an asshole. And it's like, dude, man, I'd rather just tell them, like, man, I bought it like this, like, or I guess you can fill them out. I mean, and this is pretty assholish of me, I guess, but you never know who your next big client is or whatever. But for the most part, it's not the guy that walks up with a beer in his hand and all the, I don't know. I probably have a beer in my hand, but just, I'm thinking about a guy that doesn't exist, I guess. But, just, it's usually not in some random ass parking lot somewhere or a Walmart or some shit like that, where the dude's like, dude, who painted this bike? I got this. I got a Gold Wing, man. This right here would be exactly what I want on my Gold Wing. And it's just like, fuck, dude, I'm sorry. I appreciate it, man, but it's just not happening. You know what I mean?
Well, they don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's just usually I'm nice to everybody about this situation, and I try and explain to them right away, like it's very expensive and costly, and if they usually in person, if they ask how much, I'll tell them right away, and that scares them away right away.
Yeah.
Or that puts them in an area of like, oh man, well that's, okay, well, I'm not barking up this tree.
Yeah.
So not to shoo them away, but it puts it in perspective instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're either going to carry on with the conversation with you in a completely different direction, or you never know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it is what it is, and that's part of the whole custom scene, if you will. It's not everybody gets it or understands. And the funny thing is that the people that want to do it or want it really bad, or the people that are most standoffish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
They won't approach you because they're afraid. They're afraid to ask because they think they know, but they're not sure, and they don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times they're the most standoffish ones that are standing back, that are quiet and just looking at it. And they're either appreciating it or they're judging it and trying to figure it out for themselves. So that's what I see a lot of when I'm with my bike at anywhere doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So, which isn't a lot. So, I mean, before I got a lot of that out of the chopper side of stuff. That's exactly what it was. How much is this bike? Or who did the paint? Or how did you do this? Or how did you... And it's, you got to take it as they're talking to you about something you're passionate about. So, I have no problem explaining to them, or I don't have a problem holding a conversation with him. Even though he might have like that Gold Wing or that whatever, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that he thinks it's cool, and you're talking to him, so that's even cooler.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of look at it that way now. Before, something way back I didn't. I was like, oh my God, do I got to really deal with this? Now I look at it like, hey, this guy really likes my stuff. I got to give him the time of day. Like, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
But you can easily feel the situation out and handle it accordingly. But everything nowadays seems to be, because of the world we live in, it's price point, price, how much, and then they got to justify it. Is it really worth it? Or am I going to be popular with this? Or can people see it? So, that's the funny part of a lot of things. You're in the paint side, where in a custom motorcycle show, I don't care what anybody says, doesn't matter what bike it is. The very first thing that draws a person into that bike, that makes them walk towards it or look at it, is paint.
Yeah, painters make
nothing
things.
Else. There's nothing else. You can have the most pimpin' ass titanium parts all over that bike, and they won't look at it twice if it hasn't got a pimp ass paint job at a bike show. They're just not going to look at it. They're not going to be drawn towards it. Now, having said that, is that the right person you want to begin with? Who knows? You don't know. Like that's where I got into. That's the reason why my bike the paint is so like, oh God, here's another black goddamn motorcycle. Like, who doesn't have a black bike? I get that every day, but does it come in black? Well, of course it does. So I keep them like that because I want people to notice the parts.
Yeah, not to take away from it.
Yeah, not take away from it. And, that's the only reason why I realistically haven't gone that far with the paint. Trust me, to me, there's nothing cooler than a lowrider paint job or the 80s drag race paint job that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things, that's, to me is the shit. I appreciate them so much because there's so much work there. So that's the way I look at them, though. But then once again, you're going to get a mix of people. You get the people that come over because they want to look at it because of the paint, or they come over there. So I mean, you almost to elaborate on this, you almost have to maybe check that aside and say, who cares if they're not looking at the parts? Maybe they're looking at the bike as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe I do have to do paint. So you got me thinking here. Maybe I do got a crazy paint job I got to put on it to bring them over to look at the bike more.
I don't even think it's crazy. I think it's just finding a nice color or a nice way of accenting things, and maybe it's pinstripes, and that's why I was saying I was looking at like exotic boats and exotic cars last night, because most of those aren't wildly painted. They're just like, there's things that accent the angles and lines, and even finishes is a big thing for me. Like, you can have an all black bike, but if you change the flat to semi-gloss to gloss, the different finishes could create a mood that you get when you see it, from the
totally.
And I think that there's so many ways of customizing a bike, like from other ways of, like, you got your full-time builders that are, building frames and motors and all this stuff. And then you got your people that are just taking what's there and changing the finishes and changing the textures and putting so-and-so's part on that goes well with this flow. And there's just so many facets of building bikes that I wish people would stop getting so butthurt about, when people say, yeah, I built this, or I modified this, or I customized. It's just, look, dude, I made this thing cooler than it was when I got it. So I don't know what the word you want to call me for that is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of that out there now.
Yeah.
It's sad, but usually those people want to do what you're doing though.
True. Yeah.
That's why
that brings me back
with you.
that's what brings me back to that guy that's asking the questions when you pull up. It's like usually one of the two next responses after, hey, I painted it, is I have a buddy that does really badass paint. Have you heard of him? And then he goes to look in his phone and find some pictures from 6 months ago that he took in a garage while it was dark.
Yeah.
He used to paint in the 80s, but he had to stop because the paint sucked. You hear these like stories that are like almost like they're preloaded in humans as responses.
It's daily though.
It is, man.
I can't. I mean, people that do come to the shop, come visit, the first thing they do is whip out their phone and want to show me a picture of their bike.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what do you have? Cool, I don't need to see it.
You don't want to be. You can't be like that, though. I mean,
I know, dude. It's hard.
It is. I mean, it's. I'm nice to them. I say, I've been doing this a while. I don't think I'm anybody special, but definitely, it takes quite a bit for me to go, wow, that's a cool bike.
Yeah.
you gotta bring it, because otherwise it's like, how do you, those guys that spend $100,000 on a bike nowadays, which is, they're out there.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Are they even functional?
No, they're not.
And it's tough. You have to look at it from their side, and that's what I do. I try and instantly take myself out of my own shoes and jump in theirs and look at the other way, because I was that guy too, like, who wanted to meet Jesse James or wanted to meet these guys and show them what I was doing, right? So I can be one of them, or some common ground. So, I always, and I got to credit my wife for that. She goes, you got to look at it from their side, because if you don't, you're never going to relate to people, which is tough.
Yeah.
You're so buried in your craft, it's hard to relate to people. It really is.
It is true. It is tough. You said it right. You get kind of wrapped up in it, and like, I don't even have a sign on my door, and it's because I just can't deal with walk-ins. You know what I mean? I just can't deal with the amount of questions. And
I don't have a sign either, so that's pretty funny. There's like a piece of paper. It says MJK Performance Deliveries at the back.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, it's bad.
Well, I said, the marketplace now is that the storefront is Instagram, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, it's those. It's it's just so different, man. And I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's definitely different, and it's definitely the cards that we have to play with now. So it's like, there is something nostalgic that I do want to be that great customer service representative that has a really nice shop that you walk into and there's parts on the wall and I have a smile on my face and I want to see the picture of your bike. But my shop's not set up for that. So my personality isn't either. So, it sucks.
My big dream is to have that, is to have like a hand-painted cool sign out front, hand-painted windows, and you walk in, there's this cool merchandise and cool displays. I was like, oh my God, I just set myself up here for disappointment, because I'll walk in. And I remember having, I had a particular, in my old shop, a particular build that I did that I was very proud of, and it's like very hand-built, and copper tank, knucklehead, blah, blah, blah. And I put that right out by the door in my showroom. And if they walked past it and didn't give it a second look, it was horrible. I was judging them. If they didn't give it a second look and see how much hand-built stuff was on that, then I knew right away where that guy was standing with me.
Yeah. That's a good one, though. It sucks that you get this judgmental vibe, but I mean, I've heard stories of like Harley salesmen, trying to find out, hey, judge a man by his boots and this type of shit. I've heard stories of that, but you just, I don't know, like so many people like to talk like this. We're talking. And I mean, there's a lot of guys like this that'll walk into your shop every day and then just want to, hey man, did you see that new thing on Dynaholics? What do you think about that? And you're trying to work, or you're trying to do some books or whatever the hell you're trying to do, and you're like, man, like, I don't know, man, but I'm really deep into this right now. Can I help you with something? Oh man, I'm just here to hang out, man. It's like cool, man. Like this is totally the spot for that. You want a beer? I don't know. There's a part of me that would love that shop. Like you just said, I would love to have that. And I would love to be that guy that's super interested in conversations and selling things. And I'm not like an asshole pushy salesman. Like everything's kind of working. It's a well-oiled machine, and
This is not going to happen.
Yeah, like this is Narnia I'm talking about.
Make the best of your situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I say it every day. I am one lucky son of a bitch to have what I got going on. I am so lucky. There's people that are dying to have certain things that I got, and I truly realize that. So, it really got to put you in your place sometimes, but you got to do it to yourself. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I'm driving around a shitty fucking Honda Accord that's rusted out, but at the same time, I got some badass machines, and I got like this pimpin' ass bike that I love, and there's lots of people who want nothing but the exact same thing. Mm. So, yeah, I count my blessings every day. I'm pretty lucky, that's for sure. So cool. you gotta look at it like that. Like, how many people want to have your paint?
Yeah.
They die for that paint job like that. They don't care about anything else on their bike, but they just want that paint.
Yeah, no, man.
Same thing.
It's a lot of that, man. You get people that really want to support your brand, and it sucks when your brand or what you sell is very expensive. It's like, fuck, man. I wish I had like T-shirts.
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah. You have so many people that want to support you because they like what you do or how you present yourself or whatever their reasoning.
Just can't afford it.
Yeah, it's just like, man, I'm sorry, like this is what helmets cost. I know you really like us and you whatever, but fuck, dude, I'm sorry. But yeah. It does make me wish that we had something else to offer, even if it is like T-shirts and shit to the people that are interested in our whatever, they can just be like, fuck, man, those guys
I should get into that too. I should get into some clothing, only because it's like, dude, I've never had T-shirts.
Yeah.
I've never had that. I've never had like cool stickers and T-shirts. I just think some companies start out like that. I've never had that.
That's
I
the
kinda
new
want it,
that's the
but-
new builder, man. It's like you gotta like make flannels and stuff.
Oh my God, it is funny though.
But you know,
I just
I'm the worst. Like all the things I can create and design, I cannot design T-shirts to save my fucking life. Every time I try to come up with something that looks so good on paper and then it gets printed, I'm like, man, I should have like paid somebody to do this. You know, design it for me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You'd think like you'd be a G when it comes to creating
Well,
a T-shirt.
Anytime, like, you know, like I'm good at certain types of art, but that art doesn't translate well to T-shirts. So it's like, okay,
That's
well,
true, yeah.
I want a badass T-shirt. I know I'm creative and I know I can do something, but you know, this dude over here bangs out T-shirts every day, and his shit's pretty cool. So if I pay him for a design, it makes more sense to let him just create something of how he sees our company or within some of my guidelines, as opposed to, you know, like if, you know, I make helmets and I went to him and said, hey dude, you make me a badass helmet. And he's like, I do T-shirts, you know?
Yeah,
It's just kind of out of the element. Like if I spent a year or two just creating designs, I could probably create the muscle memory to, you know, be creative in that form, but it's just not there for me. So I'm waiting till I have the money to pay people that I find as artists inspiring to me to do stuff like that for me. So that's what I want to do.
That's cool. Yeah, I gotta somehow get on that. It's difficult. Once again, it's that damn border.
Yeah.
You know, T-shirts. You know how much it costs me to make my own T-shirts? The shitty, like, simple T-shirt cost me $25.
You should just make a bunch of shit and then do like one day every month, just drive down to the border right there in Montana and then just do like a sale and, and just get people from all over the country to just drive there to come buy parts and save
Set
some
up
shipping.
like a swap meet booth.
Yeah. You're like selling watermelons on the side of the highway, but you're selling like fucking machine parts and T-shirts.
Yeah.
Some snapback hats.
Today only. Like a cardboard sign walking in between cars. Buy my T-shirts.
Cool. Well, man, we're gonna wrap this thing up. So, anything else you want to plug the website and the Instagram and shit like that? Or what? They know.
Not really. It's the whole Instagram thing. Keep an eye on that. And I want to say something about the website.
Mm-hmm.
My website sucks because I don't care about it. I don't know how else to put it. What websites? What I found are a place where people price shop the shit out of you, and then other manufacturers copy your shit. That's what a website is for me.
That sucks.
It's vicious, it seems, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you get it all the time. Like, oh, I didn't see it on your website. Well, the way I look at it, if it's truly important to you and you really want it that bad, you'll phone me.
Yeah.
You'll get a hold of me. You'll figure it out. It's nowadays, like, I make my guys handle the Instagram thing. Like, I get how much, I don't know how many times a day, just like you probably. How much for this?
Yeah.
And I just tell my guys, I said, just tell them to give me a call. If they're that interested, they can call me. I'm far better off to deal with as a person that way, explaining things than trying to, tell my guys to say this.
Yeah.
And they get a lost interest in,
It's more authentic from you anyway. So what's the Instagram? How do you? Is it just MJK
Performance?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So this will probably be out Tuesday. So hell, you might be seeing some people at SEMA that listen to this. So.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool. But hey, man,
do you post anything? We should talk about that. Do you post? Okay. If you can send me that, so I can do the same thing.
Yeah. So I'll send you that. Also, I'll tag you on Instagram and whatnot. But I said, I got to do an intro and outro, and then it'll probably be released later on tonight. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
let me know on that stuff.
It's getting more efficient these days, but man, I appreciate you sitting down, and we'll definitely touch bases again, and hopefully we'll catch each other at some event here in the next year or two.
Yeah, that's got to happen for sure. That'd be cool. Yeah, you got to try and get a hold of me. As soon as I get back, you need to get a hold of me.
Okay.
So we can talk some other stuff here. So
all right.
All right. So anyways, do that, and then this was awesome.
Thanks,
had a
man.
lot of fun.
I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later, okay, buddy?
All right, later.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I appreciate you checking us out again. We got some new podcasts coming for you next month, November. So stay tuned, and don't forget to check all of our sponsors out at TexasPerformanceMC.com as well on Instagram. Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram, as well as painthuffer.com if you would like to order some flakes and other types of things like that. And also don't forget about horsepowerinc.net, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. You can check us out at fastlifegarage.com. You can get a link to our Patreon, our YouTube, our Instagram, our Facebook, everything on there. So anything you want to check out. And like I said, I want to say thank you to Dale from MJK for sitting down or calling in for 3 hours almost. So you guys have a great rest of the week. We'll be back probably before the end of the week with another podcast for you guys. So holler at your boy.